Not knowing his pregnant wife was a king's daughter, he threw her and her suitcases into the mud. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The rain had been steady since dawn, the kind that did not fall in drops so much as in sheets, turning the drive into a brown, sucking mire. Rowena stood on the top step with the water tapping at her bonnet brim, her gloved fingers resting lightly over her belly, as if her hand alone could keep the world from jostling what was precious inside her. Edric Whitcomb did not ask her to come down. He did not offer her his arm. He remained just inside the threshold, dry and composed, with the air of a man receiving a visitor he had not invited. "Take those out," he said to the footman. The footman hesitated. He glanced at Rowena, then at the housekeeper, then back at Edric as though begging someone to change the order into something more decent. Edric's voice sharpened by a single degree. "Now." The first suitcase appeared, carried by two men, as if it weighed more than it should. It was not heavy, it was only awkward. The leather was good, the buckles clean, the corners stamped with Rowena's maiden initials, though they had been half scraped away after her marriage, as if even letters must learn their place. The men came down the steps. "Careful," the housekeeper murmured, too low for Edric to hear. Edric did hear. He smiled without warmth. "There is nothing to be careful of. Put it where it belongs." They set it down by the step. The mud swallowed one side at once. Rowena's throat tightened, but she did not speak. She kept her eyes on the suitcase, not because it mattered, but because looking at Edric's face would have made something inside her break, and she could not afford to break. Not here, not before witnesses. A neighbor's gate creaked. Someone had come out to watch. Another figure appeared under an umbrella, a maid from the next house, pretending to fetch water, though she stood still as stone. Edric lifted his chin, as if welcoming an audience. "You may go to your father's people," he said, as if her family were a stable she could be sent to, "or to any distant aunt who will take you. I have no interest in the arrangements. I require space, that is all." Rowena finally looked at him. "Space. Yes," he replied. "Space for peace." "Peace," she repeated, and the word tasted strange. Behind him, in the shadowed hall, a woman's laugh sounded. It was not loud, but it was confident. It traveled as easily as perfume. Rowena did not turn her head. She kept her face toward Edric. "She is inside." Edric did not deny it. He did not even pretend to be insulted by the accusation. "Miss Harlow will be residing here." Rowena's fingers pressed more firmly to her belly, not to hide it. Everyone could see the gentle curve beneath her cloak. She pressed as if to remind herself that she was still in command of something, something that belonged to her. "She will be residing here," Rowena said very softly. "In my home." Edric's gaze traveled down her body with the detachment of a man inspecting a bill. "In my house." A second suitcase came out, then a hat box, then a smaller case with medicine bottles that clinked together. Rowena swallowed. The housekeeper stepped forward, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. "Sir, if I may, the weather is—" "Mrs. Whitcomb ought not to—" Edric cut her off. "Mind your place, Mrs. Dalloway. You are here to keep floors clean, not to counsel your betters." Mrs. Dalloway's face flushed, then went pale. She lowered her eyes, but she did not step back. "She is with child." "I am aware," Edric said, as if she had reminded him of a ledger detail. "And that is precisely why she must go without delay. I will not have complications." Rowena's lips parted. Complications, as if the child were a stain that might spread to his cuffs. She made herself speak, because silence would begin to feel like agreement. "You mean to cast me out?" Edric shrugged. "I mean to correct an error." The words struck like cold water. Rowena's breath caught, and for a moment her vision blurred. She blinked once, slowly, and steadied herself. "I was your wife," she said. "You were," he answered. "And you have been adequate." Adequate. The rain drummed harder on the stones, as if the sky itself objected. Rowena forced her voice to stay even. "Adequate wives are not dismissed in the rain." Edric stepped forward at last, stopping just shy of the threshold. "Do not make a scene." Rowena looked past him, into the hall. A pale hand rested on the banister. a sleeve of expensive silk. Miss Harlowe's face was half hidden, but her eyes were clear enough and they held the gleam of someone who had been promised victory. Miss Harlowe spoke sweetly, as if addressing a nervous guest. "Mrs. Whitcomb, you must not distress yourself." Rowena did not answer her. She kept her gaze on Edric. "You would have me leave before your servants and the whole lane." "I would have you leave," he said, "before you grow more sentimental than you already are." Rowena drew in a breath. She tasted iron. She realized she had bitten the inside of her cheek to keep from saying words that would never be forgiven. Mrs. Dalloway moved again, unable to bear it. "Sir, allow me to at least send the carriage to—" "No!" Edric snapped. "She will take her own legs to wherever she is going. She has been raised to hardship, has she not? Let it serve her now." Rowena's fingers tightened around the strap of her reticule. She had brought it down with her without thinking, a small habit of caution. Inside were a few coins she had set aside without explanation, letters she had never dared to burn, and a locket that never left her person. The locket felt heavier now, as if it too were listening. Rowena stepped down to the drive. Mud sucked at her shoes immediately. A footman reached for the nearest suitcase, bending to lift it with quick, guilty care. "Madam, let me—" Edric's voice cracked across the rain. "Do not touch it." The footman froze, hand hovering. Rowena stared at Edric. "You will not even allow help." "She chose her path," Edric replied. "Let her walk it alone." Rowena's stomach turned, not with nausea, but with rage so sharp she could scarcely breathe. She wanted to say, "I did not choose your promises. I did not choose your vows. I did not choose your coldness." But her child moved again, and the sensation pulled her back from the edge. Rage was a luxury. She needed steadiness. She lifted the suitcase handle herself. The leather was slick with rain. The case dragged. Its bottom sank a little, then released with a wet sound. Mud splashed her hem and speckled her gloves. Somewhere down the lane a woman whispered, too loud to be kind, "How shameful." Another voice answered, "It is not shameful if she deserved it." Rowena's face stayed still. Only her eyes changed, narrowing slightly, as if she were focusing on a distant point beyond the lane, beyond the neighbors, beyond this house. Edric watched her struggle with the suitcase as if he were watching a servant attempt a task for the first time. "You see, you are capable." Rowena did not look up. "If you wish to prove my capability," she said, "you have succeeded." Miss Harlowe descended one step into the doorway, daring the rain to touch her. "Edric, you must not stand in the damp," she said, as if she had a right to protect him from discomfort. Edric did not glance back, but his shoulders softened by a fraction. "Go in, Celeste." Rowena felt her lungs seize on the name. Celeste. So there it was. Not even a pretense of discretion. Not a cousin. Not a companion. The mistress named openly, welcomed openly, sheltered openly. Rowena spoke before she could stop herself. "You have taken her into your home while I stand in mud." Edric finally looked at her again with irritation, as if she had pointed out something inconvenient. "I have taken her into my future." Rowena straightened slowly, the suitcase handle biting into her palm. She kept her voice low. "I once believed you had a heart." His laugh was quiet. "You believed what was useful." She held his gaze now, refusing to let him watch her as an object. "I hope you find what you deserve." Miss Harlowe's mouth tightened at that, and for a moment the sweetness fell away. "Do not speak to him as if you matter," she said. Rowena turned her head slightly toward Miss Harlowe, not in challenge, but in the calm curiosity of someone studying a portrait. "I mattered enough to be married." Miss Harlowe stepped forward another inch, then stopped. The rain was relentless, and she would not ruin her silk for a triumph. Edric's expression sharpened. "Enough. Take your things and go. I will not have you poisoning this house with bitterness." Rowena's reply surprised even herself. This house was poisoned long before today. Mrs. Dalloway flinched, as if expecting punishment for hearing it. Edric's eyes flashed. "You will not be insolent." "I will not be false," Rowena said. Then she lowered her gaze to the suitcase again. "I am leaving." "As you wish." She reached for the second case with her free hand and tried to pull it along. It snagged. She bent, and the movement pulled tight across her belly. A wave of dizziness washed through her. Rowena paused. She did not sway. She did not show it. She merely stood still and let the moment pass. Her child shifted once more, almost as if admonishing her to be careful. She heard Mrs. Dalloway's voice near tears. "Madam, please, at least let me—" Rowena lifted a hand slightly, a small command. "Not to Edric. To Mrs. Dalloway. Do not here, Mrs. Dalloway swallowed her sob and stepped back, the discipline of service wrestling with pity. The rain fell, the mud clung, and Rowena began to walk down the drive with 2 suitcases dragging behind her like unwilling companions. She made it 3 steps before the smaller case slipped from her fingers and toppled. It hit the ground with a dull thud, splashing mud up the side. A bottle inside clinked. Rowena closed her eyes for a brief moment, not from despair, from calculation. See, if she bent too quickly, she might fall. If she left the case, someone might open it, and inside were letters that must never be read in this house. She lowered herself carefully, knees bending in a controlled manner, and reached for the handle again. A shadow fell across her. A carriage wheel had rolled to a stop near the lane's edge, close enough that the horse's breath steamed in the wet air. The driver clicked his tongue and held them steady. Rowena looked up. A man stood beside the carriage, cloak over one arm. He was not young, but he was not old. He carried himself with the ease of someone accustomed to being listened to, yet his face showed no hunger for attention. His gaze moved from Rowena's mud-splattered hands to the suitcases, then to the doorway where Edric stood. For a heartbeat, Rowena feared the man was another witness come to judge. Then he spoke, and his voice was measured, not loud, but it carried. "Whitcomb," he said. Edric's eyes narrowed, recognizing him. "Montrose." Alaric Montrose inclined his head, the smallest bow etiquette demanded between gentlemen. "I did not expect to find your house turned into a stage." Edric's mouth tightened. "This is not your affair." Alaric looked at Rowena again, and something in his expression shifted. Not pity, not amusement, a kind of contained displeasure, as if his sense of order had been offended. "It becomes an affair of decency," Alaric said. "When a lady is sent into the road in this weather?" Edric's tone sharpened with mock cordiality. "You speak of decency while inserting yourself uninvited." Alaric's eyes did not leave Edric. "I arrived by the lane and saw what any man would see. A pregnant woman in mud, servants being instructed to stand and watch, neighbors gathering like crows. It is a curious sort of household management." Miss Harlowe's laugh rang out again, quick and sharp. "Oh, do not be dramatic, Lord Montrose." Alaric finally glanced at her, as if noticing a new piece on a chessboard. He bowed slightly, enough to acknowledge her presence without granting her honor. "Madam." Miss Harlowe stiffened at the coolness. Rowena's heart beat too fast. She did not know Alaric Montrose well. She had heard his name in drawing rooms, spoken with approval and occasional envy. A man with estates, a man with obligations, a man who had kept himself out of certain circles. A safe name, some had said. A proud one, others had said. Safe was never truly safe. Alaric stepped nearer to Rowena, stopping at a respectful distance. His eyes moved over her face. He did not ask if she was hurt. He did not offer to carry her. He waited, as if granting her the dignity of choosing whether to accept his notice. Rowena's pride rose, stubborn. She pushed her fingers tighter around the handle and began to stand. Alaric spoke gently, but not softly enough for the doorway to miss it. "Mrs. Whitcomb." Rowena flinched at the title. It felt like a chain. "I will manage," she said. "Of course," Alaric replied. "But managing need not include being made a spectacle." Edric scoffed. "She is not a spectacle. She is a consequence." Alaric's gaze snapped back to him. "That is a remark better kept behind closed doors." Edric stepped forward, rain blowing in around him. "You are not my superior, Montrose." Alaric's voice remained calm. "In rank, perhaps not. In conduct, certainly." A murmur rose from the neighbors, a quick intake of breath and whispered names. The presence of Lord Montrose changed the balance. People who enjoyed watching humiliation did not enjoy being seen enjoying it. Rowena's hands trembled, not from weakness, from the sharp, sudden awareness that if she was not careful, her secret could be pulled into this muddy daylight by accident. Alaric turned to her again. "There is an inn 1/2 a mile from here, kept by the Howards. It is respectable. My carriage will take you there." Rowena's chin lifted. "I will not accept charity." His eyes held hers steadily. Then accept common courtesy. Edric laughed without humor. She has always had a talent for refusing sense. Rowena's voice cut through the rain, clear and quiet. I refused your cruelty. It is not the same. Miss Harlow moved closer to Edric, putting a hand on his sleeve as if she were already mistress of the house. Edric, let her go. Let Lord Montrose play saviour if it amuses him. Alaric's mouth tightened. No one here is playing. A woman is leaving your doorstep in a condition that will satisfy every gossip from here to London. Edric's eyes flicked to the neighbours, as if only now remembering they had eyes and tongues. If they speak, they speak. Alaric's tone sharpened slightly, still controlled. They will speak of you. Edric's posture stiffened. That struck closer. Reputation was Edric's true religion. Rowena looked down at her suitcases. Mud clung to them. The leather that had once been polished now looked bruised and stained. The sight made her throat burn. Alaric followed her gaze. Allow my coachman to lift those into the carriage. Rowena shook her head. No. Alaric did not argue immediately. He asked, May I offer you my cloak at least? Rowena stared at the cloak on his arm. It was thick, dark, and dry. It smelled faintly of clean wool and rain. Her first instinct was refusal. The second was the memory of the baby's movement, the small reminder that she was not alone inside her own skin. Rowena's voice fell to a whisper that only Alaric could hear. If I accept, they will say what they would have said regardless, Alaric murmured back. But they will say it while you are warm, not shivering. Rowena swallowed. You do not know what you step into. Alaric's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion but in understanding that there was more beneath her words. I step into nothing that requires your gratitude, only your permission. Rowena's fingers loosened around the suitcase handle. Her palm stung where the leather had cut into it. She nodded once, small and reluctant. Alaric moved at once, draping the cloak over her shoulders with careful distance, making sure his hands did not linger. The wool settled around her like a wall against the rain. Mrs. Dalloway's eyes glistened as she watched. She made a sound, half relief, half sorrow. Edric watched too, his expression souring. You are making a show of honour, he said. How very Montrose. Alaric did not look at him. If you believe honour is only a show, he replied, you will never recognize it when it stands before you. Rowena steadied herself and began to pull the suitcases toward the carriage, slower now but more certain. The coachman stepped down without waiting for instruction, then paused, glancing at Alaric as if asking permission. Alaric gave a slight nod. The coachman moved to the suitcases. Edric's voice snapped again, loud enough for the lane. Do not touch them. The coachman stopped, startled, hands hovering. Alaric turned his head toward Edric, expression hardening. Whitcomb! Edric's jaw tightened. Those are mine. Rowena's breath caught. Mine, she corrected softly. Because if she did not correct it now, she would never correct it again. Edric ignored her. I paid for them. Alaric's reply was quiet. You are not improving yourself with every sentence. Miss Harlow's eyes flashed. Edric, do not be provoked. Edric lifted his chin. Let her drag her own burdens. She insisted on independence. Rowena's hand moved to her belly again. Her voice was so calm it almost frightened her. Do not speak of burdens, Edric. Not today. For a second, Edric's gaze dropped to her belly and something like discomfort flickered. It vanished quickly. He looked away, as if he could refuse reality by refusing to look. Alaric stepped closer to the suitcases and addressed Rowena. Not Edric. May I lift them for you? Rowena shook her head again, though her shoulders sagged with the effort of standing. I will not have him claim I left like a thief in the night. Alaric nodded, as if he understood the need for a witness. Then let your leaving be seen, but it need not be cruel. He turned slightly and spoke to the neighbours, his voice carrying without sharpness. Good people, he said, you have eyes. Use them with kindness. There is nothing honourable in watching a woman be turned out. A hush fell. One neighbour coughed, someone shifted as if ashamed to have been caught in the act of looking. Rowena's face stayed still, but inside, something loosened. The shame did not vanish, but it moved. It stopped sitting on her shoulders alone. Edric's nostrils flared. You preach as if you are a vicar. Alaric replied, I speak as if I am a man who expects better of other men. Rowena took a breath. and tugged the smaller case forward, then the larger. She reached the carriage step. The coachman held out his hand to help her up. He did it wordlessly, with the respectful caution of someone assisting a lady without presuming intimacy. Rowena paused, half-turned, and looked back at the house. The doorway framed Edric and Miss Harlow like a tableau of triumph. Mrs. Dalloway stood just behind them, face set in a pained mask of obedience. Rowena's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Mrs. Dalloway." The housekeeper started, then lifted her eyes. Rowena spoke quietly, forcing the words through the tightness in her throat. "Thank you for what you tried to do." Mrs. Dalloway pressed a hand to her mouth and bowed her head, unable to speak without breaking. Rowena looked at Edric one last time. Not with hatred, with clarity. "May your peace cost you exactly what it is worth," she said. Edric's lips curled. "Go." Rowena turned away. As she stepped up into the carriage, the movement pulled her reticule forward. It caught on the edge of the cloak. The clasp slipped. Rowena's heart lurched. She reached for it too late. The reticule tipped, and a small oval locket slid out, swinging briefly on its chain before it fell against the carriage step with a soft metal click. Rowena's hand darted down. Alaric's hand moved too, faster, catching the locket before it could drop into the mud. Their fingers did not touch, but they came close enough that Rowena felt the warmth of his skin through the air. "Forgive me," Alaric murmured, and he held it up so she could take it. Rowena snatched it, breath tight. "Thank you." Yes, but Alaric had already seen the back of it, where the metal was worn smooth in places from years of being held, and where, beneath the wear, a crest-like seal was etched so finely it could have been mistaken for ornament by anyone who did not know what he was looking at. And his face changed, as if he had just realized Rowena Whitcomb was a name that could never have been the whole truth. The carriage rolled away from Whitcomb House with a wet squelch of wheels, as if the lane itself protested what it had witnessed. Rowena sat stiffly on the seat, the borrowed cloak wrapped around her shoulders. She held the locket inside her fist so tightly, the edge pressed a half-moon into her glove. Alaric sat opposite, leaving space between them, his posture controlled. He did not look at her belly. He did not look at her suitcases. He looked out the window for a moment, as if giving her the first courtesy she had been denied. Privacy in her own shame. Rowena broke the silence first, because silence in a closed carriage could become its own sort of trap. "You saw it," she said. Alaric turned his gaze back to her face. "I saw a woman treated without care. You saw more than that." She lifted her chin. "Do not pretend otherwise." He hesitated. "If you mean the locket, I mean the locket," she said quickly, then stopped herself, forcing calm into her voice. "You looked at it as if it had spoken." Alaric's expression remained even. "I looked at it because you dropped it, and you were reaching for it, as though it mattered more than the mud. It does." She took a breath, steadying her hands. "It belongs to me." "I did not doubt that," he said. Rowena's eyes narrowed. "Then why did your face change?" Alaric held her gaze. "Because I have seen a mark like that before." Rowena's pulse jumped, sharp and unwelcome. She let her eyes drop to her lap, then back up again, refusing to appear frightened. "You are mistaken." "I am rarely mistaken about crests," he replied. Rowena's voice turned firm, almost cold. "Then be mistaken now." Alaric's mouth tightened as if he would argue, but he did not. He only said, "Very well." Rowena did not relax. She had learned too early that agreement could be a courtesy without surrender. The carriage rocked over a rut. One suitcase shifted with a dull thump. Rowena flinched and reached toward it instinctively. Alaric spoke immediately, as if to anchor her. "Are you in pain?" "No." The word came too quick. She softened it, because he had not earned her sharpness. Not yet. Not in pain. Only unsettled. "I will not keep you in this carriage longer than necessary," he said. "The inn is close." Rowena's fingers crept back to her belly beneath the cloak. The child moved, small and certain, and it steadied her again. Alaric watched her hand only for a moment, then looked away as if he had trespassed. "Do you have family nearby?" Rowena's answer was careful. "Not that can receive me." "Friends?" he tried. Rowena almost laughed, but no sound came out. "If I had friends with influence, I should not have stood in mud." Alaric's gaze sharpened. "Influence is not the same as friendship." "Is it not?" she asked. He did not take offense. "Not to me." Rowena studied him. His voice did not carry that familiar male satisfaction of being believed. He spoke as if he did not require her trust, only her safety. She looked down at her gloves, at the mud speckling the fingertips. "You should not be seen with me." "That has already happened," he said quietly. Rowena pressed her lips together. "People will talk. They already were," he answered. "I merely gave them a better subject." Rowena let out a breath that was half relief and half resentment. "You speak as if gossip were a small thing." "I speak as a man who has watched gossip destroy people who did not deserve it," he said. Then he added, as if it cost him to say it, "and rescue people who did." Rowena looked up. "Which am I in their eyes?" Alaric met her gaze. "In theirs? You are a cautionary tale." "And in yours?" she asked before she could stop herself. His answer did not come quickly, which made it feel more honest. "In mine you are a woman who has been wronged." Rowena's throat tightened. She looked away because gratitude was dangerous. It could soften her boundaries. "You do not know me," she said. "I know what I saw," he replied, "and I know what I did not see." Rowena frowned. "What did you not see?" "I did not see you beg," Alaric said. "Not once." Rowena's fingers tightened around the locket again. "Begging would not have saved me." "No," he agreed. "It would only have pleased him." They rode another minute in silence. The rain continued, relentless and impartial. Then Rowena asked, low and guarded, "Why were you there?" Alaric's gaze moved to the window again. "I had business with Whitcomb." Rowena's stomach turned. "Business? A matter of lease and boundary," he said. "Nothing that should have crossed your path." Rowena's voice hardened. "Everything crosses a woman's path when men decide it should." Alaric nodded once as if he could not deny it. "Yes." The inn appeared through the rain, squat and respectable, with a hanging sign that swung in the wind. The carriage slowed. Rowena's heart began to beat too fast. An inn meant faces. Faces meant questions. Alaric stepped down first, then offered his hand. He waited, letting her choose. Rowena stared at his hand. It was bare, rain beading on his skin. If she took it, someone would see. If she refused, she might slip. She placed her gloved hand in his for the briefest moment and stepped down carefully. The coachman began to lift the suitcases. Rowena turned sharply. "No." Alaric spoke to the coachman without raising his voice. "Set them down by the door. That is all." The coachman obeyed, placing them neatly beneath the eaves. Rowena's shoes sank slightly into the mud near the step, but at least the inn's threshold was dry. Alaric opened the door, then stepped aside and waited for her to enter first. Rowena hesitated. "You will come in." "I will," he said, "for as long as it takes to ensure you are received properly." Rowena's lips pressed into a thin line. "And then, you will go." "If you wish," he replied. She walked into the inn. The warmth hit her first, and then the smell of wet wool, ale and stew. Conversations faltered. Heads turned, not all at once, but in stages, like a wave rolling through a room. Rowena kept her gaze forward and approached the counter. The innkeeper looked up, smile ready, then saw her face and the cloak and the mud and the pregnancy. His smile changed shape. It became careful. "Madam," he said, then hesitated, as if unsure which title would be safest. Rowena spoke before he could ask. "I require a room, quiet, for the night, perhaps longer." The innkeeper's eyes flicked to Alaric behind her. Recognition lit his face, quick relief. "Lord Montrose." Alaric inclined his head. "Mr. Howard." So it was the Howards indeed. Rowena's stomach sank further. Everyone knew everyone. Nothing stayed private in a place like this. The innkeeper's gaze returned to Rowena, weighing. "We are somewhat full." Rowena did not move. "Then I will go elsewhere." Alaric stepped forward, his voice even. "Mr. Howard, I am asking you to provide a room." The innkeeper swallowed. "My lord, it is not a question of—" "It is," Alaric said softly. "A question of whether you intend to run an inn or a tribunal." A few patrons pretended not to listen. They listened anyway. The innkeeper's cheeks reddened. "Of course, my lord, of course. We have a small room on the second floor. It is plain, but clean. Clean is enough," Rowena said, and the words came out sharper than she intended. The innkeeper flinched as if she had struck him. "Yes, madam." Alaric's gaze touched Rowena's face, a quick check. Then he said, "Bring tea and bread to the room, and send for Mrs. Finch if she is in town." The innkeeper's eyebrows rose. "The midwife?" "Send," Alaric repeated, leaving no space for debate. Rowena turned to him, voice low. "I did not ask you to summon anyone." Alaric's response was equally low. "You may refuse her when she arrives, but you will not be without help if you should need it." Rowena's jaw tightened. "You treat me as if I am fragile." He shook his head once. "I treat you as if you are carrying a life in a storm." Rowena had no answer that would not reveal fear, so she said, "I will pay for my room." Alaric's gaze remained calm. "Tomorrow, when you are settled. Tonight, accept that I will not allow a pregnant woman to bargain for safety with damp coins." Rowena's cheeks warmed, half with embarrassment, half with anger. "I am not damp coins, I am a person." "That is precisely my point," he said. The innkeeper cleared his throat, eager to appear useful and eager to end the tension in his doorway. "If the lady will follow me." Rowena lifted her chin and walked past him. As she climbed the stairs, she heard the whispers begin behind her. "That is her, is it? Whitcomb's wife. Turned out like that, in this weather. And Lord Montrose brings her here. What will come of it?" Rowena's fingers tightened around the banister. She did not look back. If she looked back, she might see faces she recognized from church and market, faces that had smiled at her once and would now decide whether she deserved shelter. At the landing, the innkeeper opened a narrow door. "Here, madam." The room was small, with a bed, a chair, a basin, and a single window that rattled with the rain. It was plain. It was clean. Rowena stepped inside and set her reticule down on the chair as if placing it carefully would keep its secrets contained. Alaric remained at the doorway. "Is this acceptable?" Rowena turned. "It will do." Alaric nodded. He did not enter. He did not force closeness in the name of protection. The innkeeper lingered awkwardly, then said, "Tea and bread, my lord?" "Yes," Alaric replied. "And hot water." The innkeeper hurried away. Rowena's shoulders sank slightly now that she was behind a door. The exhaustion that humiliation had kept at bay began to press at the edges of her body. Alaric's voice softened. "Have you eaten today?" Rowena almost lied. Then she remembered she was not alone inside herself. "Little. I will ensure you have more than little," he said. "Mrs. Whitcomb—" Rowena flinched. Alaric corrected himself at once with a quickness that surprised her. "Madam," Rowena's throat tightened. "Do not call me that name." He did not ask why. "As you wish." Rowena stared at him, trying to decide whether his restraint was genuine or practiced. "You should go." "I will," he said. "But first I must ask you something, and you are free to refuse to answer." Rowena's fingers curled around the edge of the cloak. "Ask." Alaric's gaze held hers. "Do you intend to return to him?" Rowena's answer came with a quiet certainty that felt like stepping onto solid ground. "No." Alaric nodded once. "Then you must understand what that means." Rowena's lips tightened. "It means I will be called fallen." "Yes," he said. "And it means he will attempt to control the story." Rowena's voice turned flat. "He already has." Alaric's gaze sharpened. "Then you must not be alone." Rowena's temper flared again. "I have been alone before." Alaric's voice did not rise. Being capable is not the same as being safe. Rowena opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no patience for lectures, and yet she hated how right he sounded. "I do not need a guardian," she said. "I do not offer to be your guardian," he replied. "I offer to be a barrier between you and those who would take advantage of your position." Rowena's breath caught. "My position?" Alaric's eyes flicked briefly to the reticule, then back to her face. "Your vulnerability," he corrected carefully. "Your situation." Rowena studied him. "You are careful with your words." "I try to be," he said. "And yet you spoke to Edric, as if you despised him." Alaric's jaw tightened. "I despise cruelty. I despise humiliation as entertainment." Rowena's voice fell lower. "Then you must despise society itself." For the first time, a faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. Often, they stood in silence for a moment, the rain tapping at the window, the inn's voices muffled beyond the door. Then Rowena said, "You saw the mark. You said you have seen it before. If you speak of it." Alaric's expression became grave. "I will not speak of it." Rowena's eyes narrowed. You promise easily. He shook his head. I promise carefully. That is different. Rowena wanted to believe him. Wanting was dangerous. A knock sounded. The innkeeper entered with a tray, tea, bread, and a small pot of jam that looked as though it had been saved for better guests. He set it on the table, avoiding Rowena's eyes, and cleared his throat. If you require anything, madam. His gaze flicked to her belly, then away quickly, as if the sight might accuse him. Rowena's voice was composed. Thank you. The innkeeper bowed and left. Rowena moved to the chair and sat slowly, easing herself down with care. Her body felt heavy, not only with pregnancy but with the day's weight. Alaric remained by the door. I will have the Howards keep this floor quiet. Rowena poured tea with steady hands, because steadiness was one of the few forms of control she had left. You cannot control what people think. No, he said. But I can control what they do in my presence. Rowena lifted the cup. The warmth steadied her fingers. Alaric hesitated, then said, I will send a note to my steward. There is a small cottage on my land, empty at present. If you choose, you may go there tomorrow. It is discreet. It would remove you from this room full of ears. Rowena's eyes sharpened. Discreet, hidden, protected, he corrected. Rowena took a sip, buying herself time. And what will it cost? Alaric's brows drew together. Cost. Rowena set the cup down. Men do not offer cottages without expecting something. Alaric's voice turned colder, not at her but at the world that had taught her to ask. You have been given cause to suspect motives. Rowena did not soften. Answer me. Alaric held her gaze. It will cost you nothing. If you insist on paying rent, you may. If you refuse it, that is your choice, but there will be no condition attached. Rowena's eyes searched his face for the lie. She found none. That frightened her almost as much as a lie would have, because it meant kindness could exist without bargain, and she had built her survival on the assumption that it did not. She said, Why? Alaric exhaled slowly. Because I have watched a woman be discarded. Because you are with child. Because you are not an object that can be moved like furniture. And because if I do nothing, I become a man who watched and did nothing. Rowena's throat tightened. She emphasized each word. I will not be your conscience. Then be your own, he replied. And let me assist you without owning you. Rowena stared at him. You speak as if you have thought about such things often. Alaric's gaze dipped, then rose again. I have. Rowena looked away and reached for bread, breaking a piece off slowly. Her hands shook despite her effort. Alaric noticed. He did not comment on it. He only said, Eat. Rowena almost laughed again, but the sound did not come. You sound like Mrs. Dalloway. Alaric's expression softened. Then she is wise. Rowena chewed and swallowed, then said, What will you tell people? Alaric's answer came without hesitation. That I assisted a lady in distress and ensured she was lodged properly. Rowena's lips pressed. They will not believe it. Then they may be wrong, he said. Rowena looked up sharply. You truly do not fear what they will say. Alaric's eyes were steady. I fear injustice more. A commotion rose faintly from below. A voice, a laugh, then a hush. Rowena's body tensed. Someone has recognized me. Alaric listened, then said, They recognize the story, perhaps, not you. Rowena's voice was bitter. That is worse. Alaric's gaze held hers. You do not have to stay in this room beyond tonight. Rowena swallowed, thinking of the cottage, thinking of solitude, thinking of being out of sight, which could mean safety or simply a different kind of imprisonment. I will decide in the morning, she said. Alaric nodded. Very well. Rowena held the locket in her lap now, hidden beneath the cloak. And the mark you saw. Alaric's voice lowered, careful. I will not speak of it. But you must understand something. Rowena's stomach tightened. What? Marks like that attract interest, he said. Not always kind interest. Rowena's jaw clenched. I know. Alaric watched her for a beat, then said, If you know, then you know you must be cautious even with those who appear helpful. Rowena's gaze narrowed. Including you. He accepted it without protest. Including me. The restraint in his voice made her believe him more, not less. Rowena set the cup down with a soft clink. You will go now. Alaric bowed his head slightly. Yes. Then, as if remembering something, He reached into his coat pocket and produced a small sealed note. "This is for Mrs. Finch." Rowena's eyes flicked to it. "You already wrote it." "I asked the innkeeper for paper as you came upstairs," he said. "It contains no details, only a request that she come quietly if she is available." Rowena did not take it. "I did not ask you to arrange my life." Alaric held the note out steadily. "I am not arranging your life. I am offering an option." Rowena stared at the seal. It was plain. No crest, no flourish, just wax pressed flat. Her fingers twitched. Finally, she took it, as if accepting it quickly would make it less significant. "Thank you," she said, and the words came out against her pride. Alaric nodded. "You are welcome." He opened the door, then paused. "Madam, one more thing." Rowena's spine stiffened. "Yes?" Alaric's gaze was direct. "If Whitcomb comes here tonight, you are not to open your door." Rowena's voice turned sharp. "I am not a frightened girl." "No," Alaric said, calm. "You are a woman he has already proven he will treat without mercy. That is different." Rowena's fingers tightened around the note. "He will not come." Alaric did not argue, but he did not look convinced. "If he does, you will send for Mr. Howard and he will send for me. Do you understand?" Rowena stared at him. The tone was not command. It was urgency. "I understand," she said. Alaric nodded once, then left. Rowena shut the door and leaned her forehead against it for a brief moment, breathing through the tightness in her chest. Then she straightened, because even alone, she refused to slump like someone defeated. She crossed to the table and ate another piece of bread. A soft knock sounded. Rowena froze, then moved cautiously to the door. "Madam," the innkeeper's voice came through. "It is only me." Rowena opened it a crack. Mr. Howard stood in the corridor, wringing his cap in his hands as if ashamed to be holding it. "Mrs. Finch is in town. She will come within the hour." Rowena's voice was controlled. "I did not request her." Mr. Howard swallowed. "My lord did." Rowena's eyes narrowed. "Then tell my lord I require nothing." Mr. Howard hesitated. His gaze dropped to her belly, then lifted quickly away. "Madam, if you will forgive me, this place, people talk. I would rather they talk about my inn serving tea to a lady than about my inn turning one away." Rowena's throat tightened. She heard the subtext. He would rather protect himself by appearing decent than be known as a man who refused shelter, but she could use his self-interest. She had survived on less. "Very well," she said. "Mrs. Finch may come." Mr. Howard looked relieved. "Thank you, madam." Rowena's voice sharpened slightly. "And Mr. Howard?" "Yes?" "Tell your patrons," she said quietly, "that I will not answer questions in the common room. If they desire a story, they may invent it without my assistance." Mr. Howard blinked, then bowed. "Yes, madam." He left. Rowena closed the door again and returned to the chair. Her legs ached. The baby shifted, and she exhaled slowly, placing a hand over the movement. "You and I," she murmured, "must be steady." She finished the bread, then poured more tea. Voices rose below, then lowered again. A laugh, a chair scraping, a small hush that felt deliberate. Rowena stood and moved to the window, peering through rain-streaked glass at the yard below. She could see nothing but blurred lamps and the glint of wet cobbles. Her mind returned, against her will, to the moment Alaric had seen the mark. The way his face had changed, the way his restraint had tightened, as if he had taken a step back in his mind while remaining in place with his body. He knows something, she thought, and then she corrected herself because clarity mattered more than fear. He suspects something. Another knock came, firmer now. Rowena opened the door and found a woman in a plain cloak, hair tucked beneath a cap, eyes keen and not unkind. "Mrs. Whitcomb?" the woman asked. Rowena's throat tightened. "I am called that." The woman nodded. "I am Finch, the midwife." Rowena stepped aside. "Come in." Mrs. Finch entered and looked around the room with quick efficiency, as if measuring safety. "You are alone." "For now," Rowena replied. Mrs. Finch's eyes flicked to Rowena's belly. "How far along?" Rowena hesitated. "Far enough to be cautious." Mrs. Finch gave a small, knowing nod. "That answer comes from women who have reason to fear foolishness." Rowena's lips tightened. "I have reason." Mrs. Finch set a small bundle on the table. "Lord Montrose asked me to come quietly. He said only that you were in distress and that your husband had been unkind. Rowena's jaw tightened. That is one word for it. Mrs. Finch watched her closely. Do you feel pain, bleeding, faintness? No bleeding, Rowena said quickly. Only, I was dizzy when I bent. Mrs. Finch reached for Rowena's wrist without asking. Rowena stiffened, then allowed it. The midwife's fingers were warm and practiced. She counted silently, then nodded. You are tired. You are hungry. You have had a shock. Rowena's voice went flat. Shock is a delicate word for humiliation. Mrs. Finch's eyes sharpened, not offended. Humiliation can shock the body just as much as fear. Rowena swallowed. Will it harm the child? Mrs. Finch's expression softened. Not if you rest. Not if you eat. Not if you keep warm. Rowena gestured to the cloak. Warmth has been provided. Mrs. Finch's gaze flicked to it. Montrose. Yes, Rowena said curtly. Mrs. Finch smiled faintly. He is not a fool. Rowena's head snapped up. Do not speak of him as if you know him. Mrs. Finch lifted her hands slightly, palms open. I know men in general. I know which ones send for a midwife quietly, and which ones send for one only when a scream forces their hand. Rowena looked away, cheeks hot. Mrs. Finch sat, opening her bundle. Show me your hands. Rowena hesitated. Why? Because I see you gripping things as if they might fly away, Mrs. Finch said, matter of fact. And your fingers are cramped. Rowena held out her hands. Mrs. Finch took them gently, turning them over. Mud stains. A small cut from the suitcase handle, her brow furrowed. Rowena's voice turned defensive. It is nothing. Mrs. Finch looked up. It is something. It is proof you have been made to work when you should have been protected. Rowena's throat tightened. I do not need pity. Good, Mrs. Finch said briskly. I do not offer pity. I offer care. She dabbed ointment onto the cut with efficient fingers. There, now, sit and drink. Rowena obeyed because the alternative was to argue until her body gave out. Mrs. Finch watched her drink. Are you in danger here? Rowena's answer was guarded. I do not know. Mrs. Finch nodded, accepting it. Men who throw wives into rain rarely stop at the first cruelty. Rowena's hands tightened around the cup. He will not touch me again. Mrs. Finch's voice was calm. I did not say he would. Rowena swallowed. I mean, he cannot reach me. Mrs. Finch studied her. Because of Montrose. Rowena's jaw tightened. Because of my own decisions. Mrs. Finch's smile flickered. Then decide to sleep. Rowena almost laughed. And this time a small sound escaped. It startled her. Mrs. Finch's eyes softened. There, you are still yourself. Rowena looked down. I do not know who myself is anymore. Mrs. Finch said simply, a woman who has survived today. The words landed harder than any sermon. Mrs. Finch rose. I will speak to Mr. Howard. I will tell him you require quiet. If anyone attempts to come to your door, he will send them away. Rowena's eyes narrowed. He may not. Mrs. Finch's gaze turned firm. He will, if he wishes to keep my good opinion. And he does. Men in towns like this always do. Rowena's lips pressed together. You are confident. Mrs. Finch shrugged. I deliver babies. I know what men fear. Rowena stared at her. And what do they fear? Mrs. Finch smiled, quick and sharp. Women who speak plainly. She moved to the door, then paused. You will lock it. I will, Rowena said. Mrs. Finch left. Rowena locked the door and leaned back against it, exhaling slowly. Her body felt heavy now, as if the day had finally caught up with her. She undressed with care, keeping her chemise on, and lay down under the thin blanket. She kept the locket in her hand, hidden beneath the pillow. She closed her eyes. Sleep did not come quickly. When it did, it came in shallow pulls, dragged by worry. A voice in the corridor woke her. Not loud, not angry, just unfamiliar. Rowena sat up slowly, heart pounding. She listened. Footsteps. Then Mr. Howard's cautious tone. Yes, sir. The common room is downstairs. A man's voice answered, polite, controlled, with the crispness of someone used to being obeyed. I will not take up space in your common room. I require only a moment of your time. Mr. Howard hesitated. If you are looking for Lord Montrose, he is not— I am not, the man replied. I am looking for a lady. Rowena's fingers tightened on the blanket. She slid out of bed quietly and moved to the door, pressing her ear to the wood. Mr. Howard spoke again, uncertainty thick in his throat. A lady. Yes, the man said. She arrived in the rain. She is with child. Mr. Howard's silence was long enough to feel like an answer. Rowena's stomach turned cold. Then Mr. Howard cleared his throat. Sir, we have many guests. The man's voice did not rise. It did not threaten. It simply became more precise. I do not require many guests, he said. I require one. Her name is Rowena Ashford. Rowena did not open the door. She stood with her back against it, one hand braced on the latch, the other pressed lightly to her belly, as if to quiet her own breathing. In the corridor, Mr. Howard cleared his throat again, too loudly. Sir, the innkeeper said, I cannot discuss the names of my guests. The stranger answered with patient firmness. Then discuss nothing. Simply tell her I am here. I cannot, Mr. Howard replied, voice tight. You can, the man said. You are choosing not to. Rowena closed her eyes for a heartbeat. The name Rowena Ashford had not been spoken in her hearing by a stranger in years. Not since she was a girl sent away from certain doors, taught to nod, taught to keep her chin down, taught to accept that her very existence was best handled in whispers. She forced her breath to steady. She would not panic. Panic was for people who believed they might be rescued by it. Mr. Howard attempted something like cheer. If you have business with Lord Montrose, I suggest you call at his estate tomorrow. I have business with the lady, the man repeated, and his words did not change. You may tell her that I come on behalf of persons who once ensured her safety. She will understand. Mr. Howard hesitated. Sir, I do not know what you mean. The man's voice lowered, gentle enough to sound almost kind. You know enough to be afraid. Now, be sensible. Tell her. Rowena's mind moved quickly. If she stayed silent, the man might leave, or he might remain, or he might go downstairs and spread the name among patrons like spilled ink. If she opened the door, she gave him what he wanted, confirmation that Rowena Ashford was here. She turned her head slightly and spoke through the wood, voice low and controlled. Mr. Howard, the innkeeper startled. Madam, is Lord Montrose still in the building? She asked. A pause. Then, no, madam. He left not long after you retired. Rowena's throat tightened. Of course he had left. He had done what he could without making her his responsibility, and now she had a stranger in the corridor with her secret on his tongue. She raised her voice just enough. Tell the gentleman I am unwell and will receive no one. The stranger responded immediately, as if he had been waiting for proof she was behind the door. Unwell ladies still have names, Mrs. Ashford. Rowena's fingers tightened on the latch. She kept her voice steady. You have made a mistake. No, the man said calmly. I have made a request. I do not know you, Rowena replied. You are not required to know me, he answered. Only to remember what you were instructed to do if a messenger came with questions. Rowena's blood ran cold. That was too precise, too correct. Mr. Howard stammered, Sir, please, you are distressing her. I do not wish to distress her, the man said. I wish to protect her. But protection requires cooperation. Rowena pressed her forehead against the door, eyes shut. Her thoughts flashed to Lady Winford, the woman who had once stood between her and the world with a composed smile and a firm hand, who had taught her how to answer without revealing. If this man knew the old instruction, he might be from that circle. Or he might be someone who had learned it through prying. Rowena lifted her head and spoke with careful authority. If you come to protect me, you will leave. Silence. Then the man said, Not without assurance that you are safe. I am safe, Rowena replied, though her body did not believe it. You were safe when you were hidden, he said. You are no longer hidden. Mr. Howard's voice turned pleading. Sir, I beg you, take your business elsewhere. Your inn will be remembered for what it does tonight. The man interrupted softly. Choose wisely. Rowena's stomach clenched. He was pushing Mr. Howard, and Mr. Howard would yield if pressed hard enough. Not out of malice, but out of fear for his livelihood. Rowena spoke sharply through the door. Mr. Howard, fetch Mrs. Finch. The innkeeper's relief was audible. At once, madam. The man in the corridor gave a small exhale as if impressed. Good. Mrs. Finch has sense. Rowena's jaw tightened. He knew her too. Who are you? Rowena demanded. To speak as though you belong to this business. The man replied, a servant of those who once kept you from being used. Rowena's voice turned colder. Then you know what will happen if you say my name in public. Yes, he said simply, which is why I have said it here, not downstairs. Rowena forced herself to sound indifferent. You have already said it in the corridor of an inn. And only the innkeeper heard, he replied, unless you open the door and invite a crowd. Her grip on the latch loosened a fraction. He was right. He was also dangerous. Leave a message, she said. A pause. Then the man's tone shifted into something formal. My message is this. People are asking about you again, old questions, old faces. The safest course is to remove yourself from towns and roads until your guardian can reach you. Rowena's breath caught. My guardian is dead. No, the man said. She is not. Rowena froze. Mr. Howard's footsteps hurried away down the stairs. Rowena spoke slowly, testing the words. If you mean Lady Winford, the man answered. I do. Rowena's heartbeat pounded so hard she felt it in her throat. She could not decide if relief or fear dominated. She will come, the man said. But until she does, do not trust anyone who asks about your past. Do you understand? Rowena pressed her lips together. You asked about my past. I warned you about the present, he replied. Rowena's voice tightened. What do you want from me tonight? The man's answer was immediate. Nothing. I will go. But I will return tomorrow. If you are wise, you will not be in this inn when I do. Rowena swallowed. And if I am not wise? Then you will be found by people less polite than I am, he said, still without threat, still with the dreadful calm of certainty. Rowena's hand moved to the locket beneath her pillow. She wanted to fling it away from her, as if distance from the symbol could distance her from the truth. Go, she said. The man paused as if listening for someone. Then he replied, Lock your door. It is locked, Rowena snapped. Keep it so, he said. Good night, Mrs. Ashford. Footsteps moved away along the corridor, then down the stairs. Rowena remained still for several breaths, listening until she could hear only the rain and the inn's occasional creak. When Mrs. Finch arrived 10 minutes later, her brisk knock startled Rowena into motion. It is Finch, the midwife called. Open. Rowena opened the door quickly and pulled her inside. Mrs. Finch took one look at Rowena's face. He came. Rowena's throat tightened. Who? The man with the careful voice, Mrs. Finch said, as if there were only one such man in the world. I saw him in the passage below. I did not like how neatly he carried himself for a rainy night. Rowena's fingers shook. He said my name. Mrs. Finch's gaze sharpened. Did he say it loudly? No, Rowena whispered, but he said it. Mrs. Finch cursed under her breath with a mutter that was more exhaustion than impropriety, then caught herself and said more gently, All right, sit. Rowena obeyed. Mrs. Finch leaned in, lowering her voice. Listen carefully. Mr. Howard is frightened. Frightened men become helpful to the wrong people. Rowena's mouth tightened. He is not a bad man. I did not say he was, Mrs. Finch replied. I said he is frightened. There is a difference. Rowena stared at her hands. What do I do? Mrs. Finch did not hesitate. You leave. Before dawn, if you can. Rowena's heart thudded. Where? Mrs. Finch's eyes narrowed. Montrose offered you a cottage. Rowena lifted her head, startled. How do you know? Mrs. Finch gave her a look as if Rowena had forgotten she was not the only person in the inn. Men speak. Servants listen. Midwives hear everything. Rowena's jaw tightened. I did not accept. Mrs. Finch's tone turned firm. Then accept now. Rowena shook her head once, stubborn. I will not be hidden. Mrs. Finch's voice softened, but it did not weaken. You are not being hidden. You are being removed from mouths and questions. There is no shame in stepping away from noise. Rowena's eyes stung. She blinked it away. He said my guardian is alive. Mrs. Finch's brows rose. Alive. He said Lady Winford will come, Rowena whispered. Mrs. Finch stared at her a moment. then nodded slowly. If Winford is involved, this is larger than a husband's cruelty. Rowena's voice went flat. It always was. Mrs. Finch watched her carefully. Then you know what is at stake. Rowena did not answer. The baby moved, a small insistence. Her hand went to her belly, and the gesture gave her away more than words. Mrs. Finch's tone softened. All right. We do not speak of it. We only act sensibly. You will take Montrose's cottage for now. Rowena's pride flared. And let people say I ran to him. Mrs. Finch leaned forward. People will say what they like, but you cannot feed your child on other people's opinions. Rowena's breath caught. That, more than anything, broke her resistance. Not because Mrs. Finch was cruel, but because she was right. Rowena whispered, He is not here. Mrs. Finch straightened. Then I will send for him. Rowena's head snapped up. No. Mrs. Finch's eyes held hers. You may say no, but you may not choose danger out of pride. Rowena's hands clenched. You do not command me. Mrs. Finch's voice remained calm. No, your body commands you. Your child commands you. Reality commands you. I only translate. Rowena pressed her lips together. Mrs. Finch moved to the door. I will speak to Mr. Howard. He will send a note to Montrose's steward. They can prepare the cottage. Rowena's voice sharpened. Do not tell them my name. Mrs. Finch paused, then nodded. Very well. I will say only that a lady requires quiet. She left. Rowena stood in the middle of the room, feeling suddenly exposed despite locked wood and closed curtains. She began to gather her things with quick, controlled movements. She placed the locket deep in her reticule beneath folded cloth. She checked the letters, counting them as if numbers could create safety. She changed her dress into the plainest gown she owned, then sat, waiting with a stillness that felt like a held breath. Dawn came grey and wet. Mr. Howard's knock came early. Rowena opened the door a crack. The innkeeper's eyes were wide, his face pinched with worry. Madam, there is another message. Rowena's stomach tightened. From whom? Mr. Howard swallowed. From your husband. Rowena's fingers tightened on the edge of the door. He sent a letter. Yes, Mr. Howard whispered, delivered by a boy with instructions. He insisted it be given to you directly. Rowena stared at the sealed paper in Mr. Howard's hand. The seal was not wax with a family crest. It was plain, pressed hard, as if anger had done the stamping. Give it, Rowena said. Mr. Howard handed it over with a reluctance that suggested he wished it had never arrived. Rowena did not open it immediately. She said, Did he come himself? No, Mr. Howard replied quickly. No, madam. Only the letter. Good, Rowena said, then corrected herself because honesty mattered. Or perhaps not good. A letter can be worse. Mr. Howard nodded miserably. Do you wish me to wait? No, Rowena said, and shut the door again. She stared at the letter as if it were a small creature that might bite. Then she broke the seal. Edric's handwriting was precise, the sort taught by tutors and hardened by practice. The words were polite in shape and ugly in meaning. My wife, you have behaved theatrically. I will overlook it if you return at once and conduct yourself properly. I will not tolerate further embarrassment. Your condition requires discretion, and I will not have my name dragged through the lanes by your stubbornness. Your belongings remain my concern. Certain items were removed from the house and must be returned for safekeeping. I require you to send them to Whitcomb House immediately. If you refuse, I will take measures to retrieve them through proper channels. You will be wise. Edric Whitcomb. Rowena's hands shook as she read, not because the letter frightened her, but because it revealed his mind with perfect clarity. He believed she could be ordered back like a servant. He believed her possessions were his. He believed her pregnancy was his reputation. Proper channels. She folded the letter carefully, as if neatness could keep fury contained. A second knock came. Rowena froze, then crossed to the door and asked through it, Who is it? Mr. Howard, came the innkeeper's voice, and Lord Montrose has returned. Rowena's heart lurched. She opened the door. Alaric stood behind the innkeeper, coat damp, hair darkened by rain, expression steady. His gaze went immediately to her face, then to the letter in her hand. He came, Alaric said quietly. He wrote, Rowena replied, and her voice sounded like someone else's. Alaric stepped into the room only as far as courtesy allowed, then stopped. "May I?" Rowena hesitated, then held the letter out. Alaric read quickly, his jaw tightening with each line. "He is attempting to control your belongings," Alaric said. "He wants my suitcases," Rowena replied. Alaric looked up. "Not the leather, the contents." Rowena's throat tightened. "Yes." Mr. Howard hovered at the doorway like a nervous bird. "My lord, I can fetch a solicitor if you—" Alaric's tone remained calm. "Not yet. Thank you, Mr. Howard. We may require your cooperation later." Mr. Howard bowed and retreated, almost stumbling in his haste to be gone. Rowena shut the door and faced Alaric with the letter still between them. "He cannot have them," she said. Alaric's gaze was direct. "Then we remove you and your belongings from places he can reach easily." Rowena's chin lifted. "He will still try." "Yes," Alaric agreed, "but trying is different from succeeding." Rowena's voice tightened. "He says he will take measures through proper channels." Alaric's mouth tightened. "He may attempt legal pressure. He may attempt to convince people you are unstable. He may attempt to paint himself as a wronged husband." Rowena's eyes narrowed. "He is not clever enough." Alaric's gaze sharpened. "Ambition makes men cleverer than they deserve to be." Rowena drew a breath. "I will not go back." Alaric nodded once. "I would not advise it." Rowena's fingers clenched around the paper. "And my name." "It was spoken last night." Alaric's expression changed slightly. "By whom?" Rowena hesitated, then told him the truth, because withholding it would only leave her weaker. "A man came to the corridor. He asked for Rowena Ashford." Alaric went still. "Ashford?" Rowena's pulse pounded. "You said you would not speak of what you saw." "I did not," Alaric replied, voice controlled. "But someone else has." Rowena's lips parted. "He said Lady Winford is alive." Alaric's brows drew together. "Winford? You know the name," Rowena said sharply. Alaric hesitated, then nodded. "I have met Lady Winford, once years ago in passing. She is discreet." Rowena's throat tightened. "Then why would she be involved with me?" Alaric did not answer quickly. "You told me you were raised under vows, and you carry a mark that is not common. I will not force you to explain. But you must understand that if men are asking for Rowena Ashford, your past is no longer quiet." Rowena's hands began to tremble again. She pressed them to her belly, feeling the baby's movement steady her. Alaric watched the gesture, then spoke with care. "Do you feel well enough to travel?" Rowena forced her voice to remain even. "Yes." "Then you will come to the cottage," Alaric said. Rowena's pride flickered. "As your dependent?" Alaric's gaze held hers. "As your own person, choosing a safer roof. If you wish a written agreement for rent, I will have one drawn." Rowena stared at him. "You would allow me to rent your cottage?" "I would prefer you to feel secure," he replied. "Security is not always the same as charity." Rowena swallowed. "Very well." Alaric nodded once, then turned to the suitcases. "We will take everything." Rowena's voice tightened. "He asked for certain items." Alaric's gaze returned to her. "Then those items remain with you." Rowena exhaled, shaky. "You speak as if it is simple." "It is not simple," he said, "but it is clear. You keep what is yours." Rowena's eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing tears. "And if he brings a solicitor?" "Then I will bring one better," Alaric said, and the calm certainty in his tone made her chest loosen slightly. They moved quickly. Alaric called for the coachman. Mr. Howard helped load the suitcases, his hands shaking with eagerness to appear useful and to rid his inn of trouble. As Rowena stepped into the corridor, a woman's whisper floated from a cracked door. "That is her." Rowena did not look. She kept her gaze forward. Another whisper, sharper. "Lord Montrose is taking her away." A soft laugh. "He must have a generous heart." Rowena's face stayed still, but her stomach tightened. She hated being a story. She hated that even kindness could be turned into accusation. Alaric walked slightly ahead, opening the inn door. He did not touch her elbow. He did not guide her by force. He simply made space. Outside, the rain had eased into a fine, persistent drizzle. They climbed into the carriage. As soon as the door shut, Rowena spoke, voice low and fierce. "They will say whatever they wish." Alaric's gaze met hers. "Let them." Rowena's fingers tightened around her reticule. "I am tired of letting people." Alaric's expression softened. "Then do not let them live in your mind. Give that space to your child." Rowena's breath caught. The reminder of her child made her anger shift into resolve. They rode in silence for a short time, the carriage rocking along muddy roads. At last, Rowena said, "If Lady Winford truly lives, why has she not come sooner?" Alaric's answer was careful. "Perhaps she did not know where you were." Rowena's jaw clenched. "Someone knew." Alaric's gaze turned grave. "Yes." Rowena stared at the window, then forced herself to speak the question she did not want to ask. "Do you think the man in the corridor was sent by the court?" Alaric did not answer at once. Then he said, "I do not know, but I know this. If your name has reached ears that trade in influence, it can be used by anyone who benefits from it." Rowena's blood ran cold. "Used?" Alaric's voice remained steady. "Yes, for leverage, for scandal, for negotiation, for control." Rowena's fingers tightened on the locket hidden in her reticule. "I will not be used." Alaric's gaze held hers. "Then you must not face them alone." Rowena's mouth tightened. "And you, my lord, what are you to me?" His answer was quiet. "A man who refuses to watch you be cornered." Rowena's voice softened despite her effort. "That is not an answer." Alaric's jaw tightened. "It is the only honest one I have at present." The carriage turned onto a narrower road. A small cottage appeared ahead on a rise, modest but solid, surrounded by bare winter trees and wet grass. Rowena's breath caught at the sight, not because it was grand, but because it was separate, quiet, away from eyes. Alaric spoke as if sensing her thoughts. "It is not elegant, but it is dry, and the steward's wife will bring food and linens." Rowena looked at him. "I do not want an audience." "I will instruct them to be discreet," Alaric said. "They will treat you as a guest who requires quiet." Rowena's mouth tightened. "And if they ask who I am?" Alaric's answer came with calm authority. "They will not ask. They are paid to understand silence." Rowena exhaled. Her body ached with fatigue. She had not realized until this moment how hard she had been holding herself upright. They entered the cottage. The inside was simple. A sitting room, a small kitchen, a bedroom. A fire had been laid in the grate, ready to be lit. Rowena looked around with guarded eyes. "So this is my exile." Alaric's voice was gentle. "Call it refuge, if you can." Rowena set her reticule down carefully, then turned to him. "You will leave," Alaric nodded. "Yes. But first, I must arrange one more matter." Rowena's stomach tightened. "What matter?" Alaric reached into his coat and produced a second letter, this one with a solicitor's stamp. "This was delivered to my house early this morning, from Whitcomb's solicitor." Rowena's throat tightened. "He has already acted." Alaric opened it and read aloud, his tone even, each word carrying quiet outrage. "To Lord Montrose, it has come to my client's attention that you have involved yourself in a private domestic matter. Mrs. Whitcomb, being in a delicate condition, is not in her right mind and has removed property belonging to Mr. Whitcomb. We request you advise her to return at once and to surrender the cases and papers taken from the house. Should this request be ignored, my client will pursue proper relief and will consider any party aiding her to be complicit in the removal of property." Rowena's vision blurred for a moment, not with tears, but with fury. "She is not in her right mind," she repeated, voice low. Alaric folded the letter. "A common tactic. It allows him to appear concerned while undermining your authority." Rowena's hands clenched. "He means to paint me as unstable." Alaric's gaze held hers. "Yes, and I will not allow it." Rowena's voice turned sharp. "You cannot control his tongue." "No," Alaric agreed. "But I can control what he is allowed to do through the law." Rowena's breath caught. "The law is not kind to women." Alaric's expression tightened. "No, which is why I will be careful." Rowena's eyes narrowed. "Careful for me, or careful for your reputation?" Alaric did not flinch. "For you, and, inevitably, for the situation. Reputation becomes a tool whether we want it or not." Rowena studied him, searching for vanity. She found none. That did not make her trust him completely. It made her more unsettled. Because if his motive was not vanity, it might be something far more dangerous. She asked the question that had been pressing against her ribs since the inn. "Why do you keep doing this?" Alaric's gaze did not move. "Because someone should have done it sooner." Rowena's mouth tightened. "You do not know what you attach yourself to." Alaric's voice softened. "Then tell me what I should avoid." Rowena turned away, moving to the window, as if the rain outside could give her an answer. "My maiden name is not safe." Alaric's voice came quietly behind her. "I have gathered that." Rowena's fingers pressed to the glass. "If men are asking for it, then the quiet arrangement that kept me away from certain people is failing." Alaric's brow furrowed. "Arrangement." Rowena swallowed. "Do not ask me to explain more than I can." Alaric's reply was immediate. "I will not press you." Rowena's voice tightened. "And if I say I cannot speak of it at all, then I will proceed as if the worst is possible," he said. "And I will still proceed." Rowena turned, eyes sharp. "Proceed to what?" Alaric's expression became grave. "To keeping you safe without requiring you to betray yourself." Rowena's breath caught. The words were almost too tender. She did not want tenderness. Tenderness opened cracks. She forced herself back to practical matters. "What will you do about Edric?" Alaric's tone turned businesslike. "I will respond through my solicitor. I will state clearly that I have not taken your property, that you are lodged in a place of safety, and that any claim of your instability is unfounded. If his solicitor persists, we will insist on proper terms, not threats." Rowena's voice went flat. "He will not stop." Alaric nodded. "Then he will reveal himself further." Rowena's fingers tightened. "And the man who spoke my name." Alaric's gaze sharpened. "If he returns, you will not speak to him. You will send word to me at once." Rowena's mouth tightened. "You are not my keeper." Alaric's voice remained calm. "No, but I have resources you do not." "Use them." Rowena looked down at her hands. "I do not like being indebted." Alaric's gaze softened. "Then pay me back by staying alive and well enough to raise your child." Rowena's throat tightened. She held his gaze, and in that moment she saw something in him that had nothing to do with pride. A kind of steady grief, as if he knew what it meant to lose what mattered and had decided he would not watch it happen again, if he could prevent it. Rowena looked away quickly. "You will go now." Alaric nodded. "Yes, but I will send my steward's wife this afternoon. She will bring food and ensure the fire is lit." Rowena's voice was clipped. "Tell her not to ask questions." "I will," Alaric said. He moved toward the door, then stopped. "One more thing." Rowena's stomach tightened. "Yes." Alaric's voice lowered. "If Lady Winford comes, you will tell me at once." Rowena's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because if she comes, it confirms the situation is becoming urgent," Alaric replied. "And because I would prefer not to be surprised by the court." Rowena's throat tightened. "You think the court is already involved?" Alaric did not soften it. "I think it is possible." Rowena felt suddenly cold. "Then I am not only a discarded wife, I am bait." Alaric's gaze held hers. "You are a person. Do not let fear turn you into an object in your own mind." Rowena's voice shook once. "Fear does not ask permission." Alaric's expression gentled. "No, but you may still decide what you do with it." Rowena took a breath, steadying. "Go." Alaric bowed his head slightly. "I will return tomorrow." He left. The cottage felt too quiet after the inn's constant murmurs. The silence pressed at Rowena's ears. She lit the fire herself, refusing to wait for someone else to do it. When the steward's wife arrived, Rowena met her at the door with polite firmness. The woman curtsied. "Madam, I have brought a basket, as his lordship requested. Eggs, bread, a bit of cheese and broth, and linens." Rowena nodded. "Thank you. Set them there." The woman hesitated. "If you require anything else—" "I require quiet," Rowena said. The woman's eyes flicked to Rowena's belly, then back up. "Of course, madam." Rowena's tone softened by a fraction. "And discretion." The woman's face became serious. "Yes, madam." She set the basket down and left quickly, relieved to have instructions that did not require conversation. Rowena sat at the small table and ate broth slowly. She tried to make her mind stop circling the name spoken in the corridor. Rowena Ashford. The sound of it felt like a door creaking open. She was midway through a second cup of warm water when a knock came. Rowena froze. Another knock, gentler. Her hand went to the locket in her reticule, then to her belly. She crossed to the door and did not open it. "Who is it?" she called. A woman's voice answered, low and controlled. "Rowena, it is me." Rowena's breath caught. "I have not heard that voice in years," Rowena whispered, almost to herself. The woman continued, voice steady. "Open the door, before your courage runs out." Rowena's fingers trembled as she unlatched it. Lady Winford stood on the step, cloak damp, bonnet plain, posture as straight as it had always been, as if rain and roads were inconveniences rather than obstacles. Her face was older, lines deeper, but her eyes were the same, sharp, watchful, and filled with the particular tenderness of someone who protected by command rather than by comfort. Rowena's throat tightened. "You are alive." Lady Winford stepped inside at once, closing the door behind her as if shutting out the world. She took Rowena's face between her hands briefly, a gesture that would have been improper in a drawing room, but was necessary here. "Yes," Lady Winford said, "and you have been very foolish." Rowena's eyes stung. "I was thrown out in the rain." Lady Winford's hands dropped. "Yes, I heard." Rowena stared at her. "How?" Lady Winford's expression turned grim. "Because you were seen. Because your husband has ambition instead of decency. And because the moment you were visible, your name began to move again." Rowena swallowed hard. "The man at the inn." Lady Winford nodded. "He was sent ahead to confirm you." Rowena's voice tightened. "By whom?" Lady Winford's eyes held hers. "By people who remember you exist." Rowena's stomach clenched. "The court." Lady Winford did not say yes. She did not say no. She said, "The king's advisers do not enjoy surprises, and you have become one." Rowena's breath caught. "I did not choose this." Lady Winford's expression softened just a little. "No, you were born into it." Rowena took a step back as if distance could make her steadier. "What do they want?" Lady Winford's voice lowered. "To ensure you do not become scandal. To ensure you do not become leverage. To ensure you do not become spoken of." Rowena's laugh came out brittle. "I was spoken of yesterday by my neighbors." Lady Winford's gaze sharpened. "That is nothing compared to what happens if your blood is debated in public." Rowena's hand went to her belly again. "I have a child." Lady Winford's face tightened at the sight. "Yes, I see." Rowena's voice turned fierce. "They will not take my child." Lady Winford's tone was calm but urgent. "No one will take your child if you remain sensible." Rowena's eyes narrowed. "Sensible means obedient." Lady Winford's gaze held hers. "Sensible means alive." Rowena pressed her lips together. "Edric is sending solicitors after my suitcases." Lady Winford's expression hardened. "He is searching for proof." Rowena's throat tightened. "Proof of what?" Lady Winford did not answer directly. "Does he have any reason to suspect?" Rowena hesitated, then admitted, "A man saw my locket." Lady Winford's eyes flashed. "Who?" Rowena's voice was reluctant. "Lord Montrose." Lady Winford went still. "Montrose?" Rowena's heart thudded. "You know him." Lady Winford's face remained controlled. "I know his family. I know his reputation." Rowena's voice tightened defensively. "He helped me." Lady Winford's eyes stayed sharp. "Help can be honest. Help can also be curious." Rowena flinched. "He did not press me." Lady Winford's tone was measured. "Not pressing can be wisdom, or it can be strategy." Rowena's hands clenched. "He is not my enemy." Lady Winford studied her, then said something that landed like a weight. "He may not be, but you must never assume a man is harmless simply because he is polite." Rowena's voice broke once. "I cannot keep fighting everyone." Lady Winford's expression softened, and for the first time she looked truly weary. "Then do not fight. Choose your battles carefully." Rowena swallowed. What battle is now? Lady Winford stepped closer. The battle is that you have been made visible, so we must manage visibility. Rowena's eyes narrowed. Manage? Lady Winford nodded. We will ensure you are settled quietly with protection. We will ensure your husband is restrained. And we will ensure the Crown understands you are not to be handled like a loose thread. Rowena's throat tightened. You speak as if I am cloth. Lady Winford's gaze softened. I speak as if you are a life the world will tug at until it tears, unless someone holds firm. Rowena stared at her. And will you hold firm now? Lady Winford's jaw tightened. Yes. But you must listen. Rowena's voice went flat. I listened all my life. Lady Winford's eyes flashed. Then listen once more, and afterward you may choose your own path with full knowledge of the danger. Rowena's hands tightened around the chair back. Speak. Lady Winford drew a breath. There are men near the court who believe your existence is a risk, not because you have done anything, but because you remind them of old scandals and old factions. If your name rises, they will try to bury it again. Some will bury it with kindness, some will bury it with control. Rowena's breath caught. And Edric. Lady Winford's lips tightened. Edric is ambitious. Ambitious men do not stumble upon secrets by accident for long. If he suspects, he will try to profit. Rowena's eyes flashed. I will not allow it. Lady Winford's gaze held hers. Then you must stop reacting and begin planning. Rowena's voice sharpened. Planning requires power. Lady Winford's answer was quick. Then we will borrow power. Rowena's stomach tightened. From whom? Lady Winford's eyes narrowed, and for a moment she looked older than ever. From the only place power cannot be refused. Rowena's breath stalled. The king. Lady Winford did not deny it. Rowena's hand tightened on her belly. No. Lady Winford's voice grew firmer. Rowena. Rowena's eyes stung. I will not go back to that shadowed world. Lady Winford's expression softened. You may not have a choice. Rowena's voice rose, then steadied again as she forced it down. I always have a choice. Lady Winford held her gaze. Then choose with your eyes open. A knock came at the cottage door. Both women froze. Rowena's heart slammed in her chest. She whispered, Who knows you are here? Lady Winford's mouth tightened. Too many. Another knock, more formal, patient. Rowena did not move. Lady Winford spoke quietly. Stay back. She crossed to the door and opened it just enough to look out. A young man stood on the step, coat damp, hair slicked by rain, posture careful. He held a letter as if it were a fragile thing. Lady Winford, he said, bowing his head slightly. I was told you might be here. Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. By whom? The young man's gaze flicked past her into the room, as if trying to see Rowena without making it obvious. By those who wish matters handled discreetly. Lady Winford's voice turned colder. Say your business. The young man held out the letter. This arrived for the lady. It bears instructions. Rowena's stomach turned. She stepped forward despite Lady Winford's warning, unable to stay hidden from a message that might already shape her life. Lady Winford took the letter without letting the young man cross the threshold. She turned it slightly so Rowena could see the seal. It was not Whitcomb's crude stamp. It was not a solicitor's mark. It was a royal seal. Lady Winford held the letter between two fingers, as if it might stain the air. Rowena did not step closer. She could not. Her body felt suddenly distant from itself, as if the room had widened. The young man on the step kept his head slightly lowered. I was instructed to place it in her hands, only hers. Lady Winford's eyes stayed sharp. You were instructed by whom? The young man's voice remained careful. By Mr. Halbrook. Rowena's breath caught. The name was old, a name that lived behind doors, a name that had once belonged to a quiet household where she had been told again and again that questions were dangerous. Lady Winford glanced back at Rowena. He has no right to send anyone here. The young man added quickly, He said he is acting under direction, my lady. Lady Winford's mouth tightened. Direction from where? The young man did not answer with a name. From those who prefer not to be discussed on a doorstep. Rowena finally spoke, and her voice surprised her by being steady. Give it to me. Lady Winford hesitated. Rowena, Give it, Rowena repeated, and held out her hand. Lady Winford placed the letter in her palm. The wax was cold. The seal was unmistakable. It did not belong in a cottage on wet land. It belonged in a chamber where people bowed without thinking. Rowena stared at it. The young man said, almost pleading, "I am to wait for an answer." Lady Winford's tone cut cleanly. "You will wait in the road, not in this house." The young man bowed. "As you wish, my lady." He stepped back into the drizzle and stood with the patience of someone trained for waiting. Lady Winford closed the door, slid the bolt, then turned to Rowena. "Do not open it yet." Rowena's fingers tightened around the letter. "You think I do not know what it is. I think you know too well," Lady Winford replied. "And that makes you reckless." Rowena's jaw tightened. "I have been reckless exactly once. I married a man who wanted my obedience more than my happiness." Lady Winford's eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. "And now you must be clever enough to survive the consequences." Rowena's throat tightened. "We were speaking of my marriage, now we are speaking of the crown." "We are speaking of the same thing," Lady Winford said, "because your husband will use anything he can reach, including your name." Rowena swallowed. "Then he suspects." Lady Winford's gaze sharpened. "Does he?" Rowena hesitated, then said the truth she had avoided. "He wants my papers. He wants my cases. He believes I took something that belongs to him." Lady Winford nodded once. "He believes you took leverage." Rowena's fingers pressed into the wax. "If I open this letter, I become visible again." "You have already become visible," Lady Winford said. "A royal seal has found you in the countryside. That is visibility." Rowena's voice went thin. "Then what do I do?" Lady Winford lifted her chin. "You do not tremble, you do not beg, and you do not bargain from fear." Rowena let out a breath that shook once, then steadied. "You always speak as though calm were a choice." "It is," Lady Winford replied. "Not an easy choice, but a choice." Rowena broke the seal. The paper inside was thick, the handwriting formal. It was not the king's hand. It was the hand of a man who wrote for kings. Lady Winford moved closer, reading over Rowena's shoulder without apology. Rowena read aloud because her voice felt more real than her thoughts. "Madam, the circumstances of your present situation have reached persons concerned with your welfare and discretion. It is requested that you receive in private a representative empowered to convey assurances and arrangements for your safety. This meeting must occur without delay. The representative will attend you at the nearest location you deem suitable, provided it allows for privacy and respect. You are instructed to bring no persons except those you trust absolutely." Rowena stopped. Lady Winford's mouth tightened. Instructed. They never learned to ask. Rowena's fingers trembled slightly. "A representative." "Yes," Lady Winford said. "An emissary with a clean voice and a careful smile." Rowena looked down at her belly. "And they say it is for my welfare." Lady Winford's tone turned blunt. "It is for the realm's convenience. Your welfare will be included because it is useful to include it." Rowena flinched because it was true, and truth was sometimes crueler than malice. Rowena whispered, "They will take me." Lady Winford shook her head. "Not if I am here. Not if we are wise." Rowena's throat tightened. "You said we might have to borrow power." Lady Winford held her gaze. "And here is the power. It has come to your door. We will not slam it shut, but we will open it on our terms." Rowena's lips pressed together. "My terms." Lady Winford's voice softened a fraction. "Yes, yours." Rowena's eyes stung. She blinked hard. "I do not know how to make terms with a world that pretends I should not exist." Lady Winford took Rowena's hand, firm and warm. "Then you will let me speak when you cannot. That is what I have always done." Rowena swallowed. "Where will we meet him?" Lady Winford considered. "Not here. This cottage is not secure enough, and Montrose's name should not be tangled with this unless it must." Rowena's jaw tightened. "He is already tangled. He has been seen with me." Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. "Which is precisely why we must not give anyone more to chew on." Rowena's voice went sharp. "Do you dislike him?" Lady Winford's answer was measured. "I do not dislike him. I distrust circumstances." Rowena looked away. "He has been the only man to treat me as a person since yesterday." Lady Winford's gaze softened briefly. "That may be so, but the court does not reward goodness. It rewards usefulness," Rowena whispered. "What am I to them?" Lady Winford did not soften it. "A loose thread, and threads can unravel tapestries." Rowena stared at the letter again. "It says I may bring those I trust absolutely." Lady Winford lifted her chin. "You will bring me." Rowena nodded slowly. "And perhaps Mrs. Finch." Lady Winford's brows rose. "A midwife is not required for conversation." "She is required for me," Rowena said, and her voice shook once. "I will not be spoken to like a problem while I am carrying a child." Lady Winford studied her, then nodded. "Very well. Finch may come." Quietly, Rowena's fingers tightened. "And Lord Montrose?" Lady Winford's eyes sharpened. "No." Rowena's jaw set. "He should know." Lady Winford's voice turned firm. "He should know when you know what you are facing. Not before. You will not invite him into a net he did not weave." Rowena's throat tightened. "He would come anyway." Lady Winford's gaze held hers. "Then you will tell him later, when there is less danger of him being used against you." Rowena's chest rose and fell. She hated being told no. She hated that she understood why. Lady Winford said, "We will send word that you will meet the representative at the inn. The Howards have private rooms. People expect gentlemen to conduct business there. It will not be strange." Rowena's stomach clenched. "Back there." Lady Winford nodded. "Yes, but this time you go not as a discarded wife. You go with a woman at your side and a plan in your mind." Rowena whispered, "Edric's solicitor will continue." Lady Winford's mouth tightened. "Let him. He will run into a wall he did not know existed." Rowena exhaled slowly. "He will pay for what he did." Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. "Do not waste energy on revenge." Rowena's gaze flashed. "It is not revenge. It is justice." Lady Winford held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. "Then pursue justice in a way that does not burn you." The carriage returned that afternoon, arranged by Lady Winford with a note slipped to Mr. Howard. Mrs. Finch arrived too, face set, cloak pulled tight. When Finch saw Lady Winford, she paused in the doorway. "Well, so the ghost is not a ghost." Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. "Do not call me that." Mrs. Finch smiled faintly. "You look too alive to be dead." Rowena's breath caught at the sound of their familiarity. "You know each other." Mrs. Finch's mouth twitched. "I know everyone worth knowing, and everyone worth avoiding." Lady Winford said dryly, "You were not invited for commentary." "I was invited for sense," Mrs. Finch replied, and looked at Rowena's face. "Are you steady?" Rowena nodded. "As steady as I can be." Mrs. Finch's gaze softened. "Good. Then we go." At the inn, Mr. Howard's face tightened when he saw Lady Winford. He bowed so quickly it looked like panic. "My lady," he murmured. Lady Winford's voice was smooth. "Mr. Howard, I understand you have a private parlour." "Yes, my lady. Yes, at once." Mrs. Finch leaned close to Rowena as they climbed the stairs. "The innkeeper will wet himself before he crosses you now." Rowena's lips pressed together. "That does not comfort me." "It should," Mrs. Finch said. "Fear makes men obedient." Rowena whispered, "I hate that." Mrs. Finch replied, "So do I. But we use what we have." They entered the parlour. A fire burned low. Tea waited untouched. The shutters were half closed, leaving only a slice of grey light. Lady Winford stood near the window, posture straight. Mrs. Finch took a chair and placed herself where she could see the door. Rowena remained standing, hands clasped lightly in front of her, as if standing could keep her from being reduced. A knock came. Lady Winford spoke. "Enter." The door opened. A man stepped in, not young, not old, dressed with restraint rather than display. He bowed with precision. "Lady Winford," he said. "Mrs. Ashford." Rowena's breath caught at the name, but she did not flinch. She did not correct him. Correcting him would be admitting the name was a disguise. Silence was safer. Lady Winford's voice was cool. "You have found us. Say your purpose." The man's gaze moved briefly to Mrs. Finch, then back. I am Mr. Halbrook. Rowena's fingers tightened because the name was the same as the one spoken by the young messenger. Lady Winford said, "You will speak plainly." Mr. Halbrook nodded. "I have been sent as a representative, empowered to offer assurances, provisions, and counsel." Rowena's voice came out low. "By whom?" Mr. Halbrook did not smile. "By His Majesty's household." Lady Winford's expression did not change. "Household is a wide word." Mr. Halbrook inclined his head. "By those who act on the King's instruction." Rowena felt the room tilt, then right itself. She forced her breath to remain even. Mr. Halbrook continued, "Madam, you have been wronged in a manner that creates risk, not only to yourself, to discretion." Rowena's eyes narrowed. "I have been wronged in a manner that creates pain." Mr. Halbrook met her gaze without offense. "Yes, and pain tends to speak," Lady Winford cut in. "Are you here to threaten her into silence?" Mr. Halbrook's tone remained steady. "No, I am here to ensure she does not require threats." Rowena's mouth tightened. "Explain." Mr. Halbrook took a document from his coat. "There will be a private acknowledgement. No public proclamation, no court presentation, but formal enough to secure your safety." Rowena's heart beat hard. "Acknowledgement of what?" Mr. Halbrook held her gaze. "Of your parentage." The word parentage seemed to fill the parlor. Rowena felt Mrs. Finch's hand land lightly on her arm, a grounding touch. Rowena's voice remained controlled, though it shook once. "Say it." Mr. Halbrook did not look away. "You are the King's daughter." Lady Winford's jaw tightened. Mrs. Finch muttered, "Finally." Rowena's throat tightened so fiercely she could barely breathe. She did not weep. She did not smile. She simply stood, absorbing a truth that had always been true, and yet still felt like a blow when spoken aloud. Rowena said, "Daughter, and yet hidden." Mr. Halbrook nodded. "Hidden by necessity at the time. You were raised at a distance for reasons you have likely been given in fragments." Rowena's voice sharpened. "Fragments are all women receive." Mr. Halbrook's expression stayed respectful. "It need not remain that way, but the realm still prefers quiet." Lady Winford stepped closer, voice firm. "What are you offering?" Mr. Halbrook placed the document on the table. "As settlement sufficient to ensure a comfortable, independent household, legal counsel in matters of marriage and property, protection through discreet channels, and an instruction to Mr. Whitcomb that he will cease pursuing you." Rowena's eyes flashed. "Instruction? From the Crown?" Mr. Halbrook nodded. "Yes?" Rowena's voice went hard. "And in exchange?" Mr. Halbrook's gaze remained steady. "Discretion. No public claim. No speaking of blood in any place where it could be repeated." Rowena's hand tightened over her belly. "My child," Mr. Halbrook did not hesitate, "your child will be protected. Quietly. There will be a provision made. Not a title. Not a proclamation. Protection." Rowena's lips parted. "And if my husband claims the child is his property?" Mrs. Finch's grip tightened on Rowena's arm at the word property, but Rowena kept her tone even. Mr. Halbrook replied, "There will be a legal strategy. Your marriage may be dissolved on grounds that will not require public spectacle. Your husband's behavior is already documented." Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. "Documented." Mr. Halbrook's tone stayed neutral. He was not discreet. Discretion is valued by those who govern. A man who humiliates a pregnant wife in public invites attention he does not want. Rowena's voice was low. "He invited attention because he believed I was powerless." Mr. Halbrook nodded. "And he was wrong." Rowena looked down at the paper on the table. The ink lines blurred slightly. She blinked once, hard. Lady Winford said, "What guarantees do we have that your offer is not a leash?" Mr. Halbrook's answer came with quiet honesty. "All protection is a leash if one prefers to run into danger. I will not insult you by claiming otherwise. But it is a leash held with open hands, not closed fists." Mrs. Finch snorted softly. "That is almost poetry." Mr. Halbrook's gaze flicked to her, then back to Rowena. "Madam, you may refuse, but refusal will not make you invisible again. It will simply remove resources from your reach." Rowena's voice tightened. "So it is choice, but not really." Mr. Halbrook did not argue. It is the best choice available. Lady Winford watched Rowena closely. Rowena lifted her chin. If I accept, does it mean I must go to court? Mr. Halbrook shook his head. No, you will not be paraded. That is not desired. Rowena's mouth tightened. Desired by whom? Mr. Halbrook said calmly, by those who remember the cost of scandal. Rowena's hands trembled slightly. She placed them on the table to steady them. Mrs. Finch said softly, take it. Take safety. Take breathing room. Rowena whispered, breathing room bought with silence. Lady Winford replied, silence can be a shield when used by choice. Rowena looked at the document again. Then she asked the question that had been lodged in her throat since Edric's boot had splashed mud against her hem. Will my husband be allowed to continue as if he did nothing? Mr. Halbrook's eyes did not soften, but his voice did. No. Rowena's breath caught. Say it plainly. Mr. Halbrook nodded once. He will be instructed to provide a settlement appropriate to a wife he has wronged. He will be discouraged from pursuing further ambitions that require a clean reputation. And he will be made to understand that the Crown does not forget public indecency. Rowena's lips pressed together. That was not vengeance. It was consequence. Lady Winford said, and if he refuses? Mr. Halbrook's answer was calm. He will not refuse. Rowena stared at him. You sound certain. Mr. Halbrook replied, I am. Silence filled the room again, heavier now but less frightening. Rowena reached for the document, but she did not sign it. She read the first lines, then looked up. I will accept protection, she said slowly, on one condition. Lady Winford's brows rose. Mr. Halbrook inclined his head. State it. Rowena's voice steadied as she spoke. No one speaks of my child as leverage. Not now. Not ever. Mr. Halbrook did not hesitate. Agreed. Rowena's fingers tightened. And I will have my own counsel present when any legal matter is decided. Mr. Halbrook nodded. Agreed. Lady Winford's mouth tightened slightly, as if proud despite herself. Rowena lifted her chin. Then I accept. Mr. Halbrook bowed. Thank you, madam. Arrangements will begin immediately. Lady Winford's voice remained cool. And Lord Montrose. Mr. Halbrook's gaze flicked briefly, cautious. What of him? Rowena's pulse quickened. She forced calm into her voice. He assisted me. He is now being implicated by my husband's solicitor. Mr. Halbrook nodded. Then we will ensure he is not harmed by mere association. Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. You speak as if that is a small matter. Mr. Halbrook replied, his reputation will not be damaged by doing what is decent, not among those whose opinion matters. Rowena's breath caught, and she did not like how much comfort that gave her. Mr. Halbrook gathered his papers. I will leave you to rest. A carriage will be sent. You will be moved to a more secure lodging within the week. Rowena's voice sharpened. I will not be moved like a parcel. Mr. Halbrook's expression remained respectful. Then consider it being escorted. He bowed again. Lady Winford, Mrs. Finch. Mrs. Finch lifted her chin. Try not to speak in riddles to a pregnant woman again. Mr. Halbrook allowed the faintest smile. I will endeavor not to. He left. Rowena remained standing, staring at the door as if it might reopen and swallow her. Mrs. Finch exhaled. Well, that is the truth spoken without shouting. Lady Winford turned to Rowena. You did well. Rowena's voice cracked once. I feel nothing. Lady Winford stepped closer. That is shock, it will pass. Rowena pressed a hand to her belly. My child is moving, so something in me is still alive. Mrs. Finch said briskly, everything in you is alive. Sit down before your knees decide otherwise. Rowena sat. Lady Winford's tone turned practical. Now we address your husband. Rowena's jaw tightened. He will not stop, Lady Winford said. He will stop, because he will be told to. Rowena's voice went low. Told by the king. Lady Winford's gaze held hers. Told by power, yes. Rowena whispered, I hate needing it. Lady Winford replied, so do I. But you are allowed to use what exists to protect yourself. Rowena stared at her hands. Will they ever allow me to speak openly? Lady Winford's answer was gentle and firm. Not without cost. Rowena swallowed. Then I will pay only what I choose. Lady Winford nodded once. That is the first true sentence you have said since you were thrown into the mud. Rowena's breath hitched and her eyes stung again. She blinked hard, forcing composure. Mrs. Finch stood. I will check on Mr. Howard. Make sure he does not chatter himself into trouble. Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. He will say nothing to anyone who matters. Mrs. Finch replied, He will say nothing to anyone if I have anything to do with it. She left. Lady Winford sat across from Rowena. For a moment, her voice softened. When I believed I might die, I regretted not telling you more. Rowena's throat tightened. Why did you let me marry him? Lady Winford's expression pained. Because you wanted freedom, and because you believed love would make a cage into a home. Rowena's lips pressed together. I was foolish. Lady Winford's gaze held hers. You were young. That is not the same. Rowena's voice was very quiet. I thought if I became a wife, I could stop being a secret. Lady Winford's face softened. And he promised you that? Rowena nodded once. He promised many things. Lady Winford's tone turned sharper, and now he will learn that promises broken have consequences. Rowena whispered, He does not deserve mercy. Lady Winford replied, Justice is not the absence of mercy. It is the presence of boundaries. Rowena stared down at the document again, the ink that had just changed her life without changing her face. A knock came at the parlour door. Lady Winford stood. Enter. Alaric Montrose stepped in, coat damp, expression controlled. His gaze went immediately to Rowena, not to the papers. He bowed. Lady Winford. Lady Winford's eyes stayed sharp. Lord Montrose. Rowena's heart tightened at the sound of his name in this room, beside the royal seal. She did not stand. She could not decide whether standing would be respect or surrender. Alaric's gaze met hers. I received word you were here. I came as quickly as I could. Lady Winford's voice was cool. And why would you involve yourself further? Alaric did not flinch. Because Whitcomb's solicitor wrote to mine. He intends to accuse me of assisting in the removal of property. Rowena's fingers clenched. I am the property, in his mind. Alaric's eyes darkened, and his voice stayed even only by effort. Yes. Lady Winford studied him. Then you came for your reputation. Alaric's gaze held hers. I came for clarity. And for her. Rowena's breath caught. Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. Careful, my lord. Alaric turned to Rowena, voice gentler. Are you well? Rowena managed. I am... Steady. Alaric's gaze flicked to her belly, then back to her face quickly, as if ashamed to be seen noticing. Good. Lady Winford said, There has been a meeting. Alaric's posture tightened. With whom? Rowena spoke before Lady Winford could. A representative of the king's household. Alaric went still. Rowena watched his expression closely. She saw surprise, yes, but not greed, not triumph. Just a quick, sharp awareness that the world had become far more dangerous than a cruel husband and a muddy drive. Alaric said quietly, So it is true. Rowena's throat tightened. You guessed. I suspected, he corrected carefully. I did not know. Lady Winford's voice cut in. And now you do. And you will keep it to yourself. Alaric's gaze did not leave Rowena. I will. Rowena's voice was low. You do not look pleased. Alaric's mouth tightened. Because it means you are being hunted by things larger than gossip. Rowena's fingers curled around the edge of the chair. Yes. Alaric's voice softened. I am sorry. Rowena let out a breath that shook once. Do not be sorry. Be honest. Alaric nodded. Then honestly, I would like to remove you from all of this and place you somewhere no one can reach. Rowena's lips pressed. No one is beyond reach. Alaric's gaze held hers. Then somewhere they must think twice before trying. Lady Winford's tone was skeptical. And what place is that? Alaric's jaw tightened. My protection would be one place. Rowena's breath caught again, and she did not like how quickly her heart responded. Lady Winford's eyes narrowed. Protection is a dangerous word, Alaric replied. Then call it partnership. Rowena's voice shook once. My lord. Alaric stepped closer, then stopped at a respectful distance, as he always did. Rowena. Lady Winford's brows rose at the use of her name, but she did not interrupt. Alaric's voice was quiet, steady. I will not pretend this is simple. Your situation will be discussed in rooms you will never enter. Your husband will continue to press until he is forced to stop, and your child will draw questions you do not deserve. Rowena stared at him, unable to look away. Alaric continued, You have been denied dignity by the man who vowed to give it. I cannot undo that, but I can offer you a future in which no one is allowed to treat you as disposable again. Rowena's throat tightened. At what cost? Alaric's gaze held hers. At the cost of my name being tied to yours. Lady Winford's voice went sharp. And why would you offer that? Alaric answered without looking at her. Because I love her. The room went utterly still. Rowena's hands trembled. She pressed them to her belly as if to keep herself from floating away. Lady Winford's voice was cold. You barely know her. Alaric finally looked at Lady Winford. I know enough to respect her, I know enough to admire her, and I know enough to be certain that my feelings are not a whim. Rowena whispered, Do not say such things in front of her. Alaric's gaze returned to Rowena. Why not? Rowena's voice broke once. Because if you say them, I might believe them. Alaric's expression softened, and he spoke as if every word mattered. Believe them. Rowena swallowed. You do not want a scandal, Alaric replied. I want you. Rowena's breath caught. The simplicity of it made her eyes sting. Lady Winford's tone remained guarded. A declaration is easy. A life is not. Alaric nodded. Then let me speak of life. I offer marriage, not as rescue, not as ownership, as a public promise that you will not stand alone again. Rowena's chest tightened. Marriage. Alaric's gaze held hers. Yes. Rowena's fingers clenched. I am still legally his wife. Alaric's voice stayed calm. That can be resolved, quietly with the counsel you now have. Rowena looked down, then up again, voice trembling with sincerity rather than fear. If I accept, you must understand something. Alaric's expression was steady. Say it. Rowena's chin lifted. My blood is not a prize, it is not a ladder. If you want it, leave now. Alaric answered without hesitation. I do not want your blood. I want your mind, your courage, your gentleness, the way you did not beg in the mud, the way you held yourself together when you had every excuse not to. Rowena's throat tightened so fiercely she could barely speak. You saw too much. Alaric said softly, I saw you. Rowena's eyes filled despite her effort. She blinked quickly, refusing tears to spill in front of Lady Winford, refusing the old shame of being witnessed. Lady Winford's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. She looked at Alaric as if seeing him anew, not as a convenient nobleman, but as a man placing himself under a weight voluntarily. Lady Winford said, If you intend marriage, you will proceed with caution. Alaric nodded. Yes, my lady. Rowena whispered. I do not know if I can love again. Alaric's voice was gentle. I am not asking for perfection. I am asking for permission to stand beside you. Rowena's hand moved instinctively to her belly, and the child moved beneath her palm as if agreeing with the idea of steadiness. Rowena looked at Alaric. If I say yes, I will not be a secret in your house. Alaric replied, You will be my wife in my house. Openly. Rowena's breath caught. And my past. Alaric's gaze stayed calm. Your past is yours. I will not pry at it for my advantage. Rowena held his gaze for a long moment, then spoke quietly, clearly, then yes. Alaric's face did not break into triumph. Instead, relief crossed it like a warm tide. He bowed his head slightly, as if honoring her choice. Thank you. Lady Winford exhaled slowly, then said, Very well. We will proceed with the legal work at once. Rowena blinked. At once. Lady Winford's voice was firm. Yes, because your husband will move quickly, and we will move quicker. Alaric nodded. My solicitor will coordinate with yours. Rowena whispered, Mine. Lady Winford's eyes softened. Yes, Rowena, yours. Rowena sat very still, absorbing the word like a new garment. Mine. Mrs. Finch returned a short time later, cheeks flushed from hurrying. Mr. Howard is back to trembling in his shoes, but he will keep his mouth shut. I reminded him that loose talk makes for poor sleep. Lady Winford said, "Good. We have arrangements to make." Mrs. Finch looked between them, then at Rowena's face. "What did I miss?" Rowena's voice was quiet, trembling with something that felt dangerously close to hope. "I am going to be married." Mrs. Finch stared, then let out a breath that sounded like satisfaction. "About time someone with a spine offered it." Alaric's mouth twitched almost a smile. "Madam, I assure you I offered it with full sincerity." Mrs. Finch nodded briskly. "Then keep that sincerity. It is rarer than gold." Rowena's hand moved again to her belly, and she felt a calmness she had not felt since before the rain began. Not certainty of safety, but certainty of direction. Lady Winford gathered the royal document and tucked it away. "We leave quietly. Rowena will return to the cottage for tonight. Tomorrow we begin legal work and arrangements for a more secure lodging. Mr. Halbrook will ensure Whitcomb receives his instruction." Rowena whispered, "And if he refuses?" Lady Winford's eyes turned hard. "He will not." Alaric looked at Rowena, voice low enough that only she could hear. "You will not be thrown into mud again, not while I live." Rowena's throat tightened. She managed, "Then I will learn to stand on clean ground." They left the parlor together, not as a spectacle but as a small line of purpose moving through a world that had tried to scatter Rowena into shame, and she realized as they stepped back into the drizzle that for the first time since yesterday she was not walking away from something, but towards something she had chosen. The first paper Rowena signed after the rain was not a plea, it was a statement. She sat at a small desk in a solicitor's parlor, Lady Winford standing at her shoulder. Mrs. Finch planted near the window like a sentinel, and Alaric seated across the room with the quiet stillness of a man who would not interrupt unless asked. The solicitor, Mr. Pembroke, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitcomb, if you would confirm—" Rowena lifted her eyes. "Do not call me that." The man blinked. "Forgive me. Madam, then." Lady Winford's voice was smooth. "She will be addressed as Mrs. Ashford for the purposes of this meeting." Mr. Pembroke nodded quickly, pen poised. "Very well, Mrs. Ashford. This document establishes separate maintenance, protection of property, and the terms by which Mr. Whitcomb will cease all claims upon your person and effects." Rowena's fingers hovered over the paper. "He can claim my person." Mr. Pembroke hesitated, then spoke carefully. "The law has its phrasing, madam." Rowena's voice remained calm. "Then phrase it as you like. I will not be treated as an object again." Alaric's voice came low and steady from across the room. "She will not?" Mr. Pembroke swallowed. "Yes, my lord." Rowena signed. The ink dried quickly, as if it too were eager to be done with her old life. Lady Winford placed another paper before her. "This is your counsel's agreement to act independently of Mr. Whitcomb's influence." Rowena signed again, then set the pen down with a soft click and exhaled. Mrs. Finch muttered, "There. Words on paper. Sometimes they save more lives than any medicine." Lady Winford's eyes flicked to her. "Do not get sentimental." Mrs. Finch lifted her chin. "I am practical. Practical women say what is true." A knock sounded. Mr. Pembroke stood. "Mr. Whitcomb has arrived." Rowena's stomach tightened, but her face did not change. Alaric rose at once, not to meet Edric as a rival, to stand near Rowena without touching her, as if lending his steadiness by proximity alone. Lady Winford said, "You will remain calm." Rowena whispered, "I have no interest in giving him my emotions." The door opened. Edric Whitcomb walked in as if the room belonged to him. His coat was immaculate, his hair neat, his mouth arranged into something like indulgence. He glanced at Rowena first, then at Alaric, then at Lady Winford with a shallow smile. "Well," Edric said, "so this is the company you keep now." Rowena did not rise. "This is the company I choose." Edric's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are bold." Mrs. Finch leaned forward. "Heaven be praised." Edric ignored her as if she were furniture. "My lord," he said to Alaric with a stiff bow, "you have inserted yourself rather deeply." Alaric's tone was even. "Only as deeply as decency required." Edric laughed once, quietly. Decency. Such a convenient word when it suits one's appetite. Lady Winford cut in. "Mr. Whitcomb, You will address the matter at hand. Edric's gaze slid to her, irritation flickering. And you are? Lady Winford's expression remained composed. You do not need my name. You need my presence. Edric scoffed. I require nothing from strangers. Mr. Pembroke cleared his throat again, more forcefully. Mr. Whitcomb, you are here to sign the settlement and agree to cease pursuit of the lady's belongings and person. Edric's mouth curled. My belongings. Rowena's voice was quiet. Mine. Edric's gaze flicked to her belly, then away as if the sight annoyed him. You have been encouraged into stubbornness. Alaric's jaw tightened. She has been encouraged into safety. Edric stepped closer to the desk, reaching for the papers without asking. Let me see. Mr. Pembroke's hand hovered protectively, then withdrew under Edric's stare. Edric scanned the page, lips moving slightly as he read. His expression shifted. The first flicker of uncertainty arrived when he saw the attached letter with its seal. Not his crude stamp, not a solicitor's crest. A royal seal. His fingers paused. What is this? Mr. Pembroke's voice grew careful. An instruction accompanying the settlement. Edric's eyes snapped up. From whom? Lady Winford replied, From those who do not enjoy public indecency. Edric's face tightened. Indecency? Rowena's voice remained steady. You made a spectacle of me. Edric's nostrils flared. I were instructed to leave quietly. Rowena held his gaze. Quietly would have required kindness. Edric's jaw worked. He tapped the royal seal with a finger, as if testing whether it was real. This is absurd. A new knock sounded, and before anyone answered, the door opened again. Mr. Halbrook stepped inside. He bowed to Mr. Pembroke with professional courtesy, then to Lady Winford, then turned to Edric with a politeness that was neither warm nor fearful. Mr. Whitcomb, Halbrook said. You have been difficult to reach. Edric stiffened. Who are you? An inconvenient acquaintance, Halbrook replied, still courteous. I am here to ensure the matter concludes without further disturbance. Edric's eyes darted between the seal and Halbrook. I have done nothing illegal. Halbrook nodded. Perhaps not in the narrowest sense, but you have done something unwise. Edric's mouth tightened. You threaten me. Halbrook's tone did not change. No, I inform you. Alaric spoke quietly. Edric, sign and be done. Edric's eyes flashed. Do not address me as if... Rowena spoke over him, calm and clear. You will sign. Silence fell. Edric looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. You presume much. Rowena's voice did not waver. I presume nothing. I decide. Edric's gaze narrowed. And you believe you have the power to decide. Rowena's hand rested lightly over her belly. I have enough. Halbrook placed a second paper on the desk. This is the clause regarding the lady's personal effects. You will make no attempt to retrieve them. You will make no inquiry into their contents. You will not send letters, emissaries, or solicitors to distress her. Edric scoffed. And if I refuse? Halbrook's expression remained polite. Then your ambitions will discover a sudden lack of welcome. Edric swallowed, and the movement looked strange on a man who had always carried himself as if swallowing were beneath him. He picked up the pen. His hand hovered. His eyes snapped to Rowena's locket, just visible at her throat now, the chain peeking above the collar as if it had chosen that moment to exist. Edric stared as if the metal had spoken. Rowena did not hide it. Edric's voice came out thin. What are you? Lady Winford's tone turned sharp. Mind your tongue. Rowena held Edric's gaze. I am the woman you threw into the mud. Edric's mouth opened, then closed again. His eyes flicked to the seal once more. He signed. The pen scraped the paper like a reluctant apology that did not deserve to be spoken. Mr. Pembroke took the documents quickly, as if afraid they might dissolve into smoke. Edric set the pen down and straightened, trying to rebuild his pride with posture alone. If this is meant to frighten me, he said, it does not. Halbrook nodded mildly. It is meant to instruct you. Edric's eyes flashed at Halbrook, then at Alaric, then back to Rowena. You will regret this. Rowena's voice was quiet. No, I already regretted you. Edric's jaw clenched. You will find society less forgiving than you imagine. Mrs. Finch gave a small, sharp laugh. Society has forgiven men like you for centuries. It is overdue to stop. Edric turned toward her, face hardening. You are impertinent. Mrs. Finch lifted her chin. I am employed, and I have a strong dislike of nonsense. Halbrook stepped slightly between them without drama, as if redirecting a conversation rather than guarding anyone. Mr. Whitcomb, you will go now. Edric's eyes narrowed. And if I do not? Halbrook's voice stayed gentle. Then you will remain, and everyone in this room will observe you failing to behave. I suspect you prefer to leave. Edric's cheeks reddened. He bowed stiffly to Alaric. My lord. Alaric returned a minimal nod. Edric looked at Rowena again, searching her face for something he could claim. Tears, fear, pleading. He found none. Rowena said very softly, Do not write to me. Edric's mouth tightened. You were once obedient. Rowena's eyes remained steady. I was once hopeful. Edric left. When the door shut, Rowena's shoulders dropped by the smallest degree, as if her body had been holding itself upright for weeks without admitting it. Mrs. Finch exhaled loudly. There, paper and pride, both folded. Lady Winford's gaze moved to Rowena's face. Are you well? Rowena swallowed. I am breathing. Alaric's voice was low. That is enough for now. Halbrook inclined his head to Rowena. Madam, you have done what was required. Further arrangements will proceed quietly. Rowena's mouth tightened. Quietly. Always quietly. Halbrook's tone softened a fraction. Quiet can be a mercy, when noise would be cruelty. Rowena held his gaze. And if I tire of mercy? Halbrook did not blink. Then choose your time carefully. Lady Winford stepped toward Rowena. Come, we have the next matter. Rowena's stomach tightened again. The next matter? Lady Winford's eyes flicked to Alaric. Marriage is not accomplished by declaration alone. Alaric's mouth tightened with restrained emotion. No, but I intend to accomplish it properly. Mrs. Finch stood. Then do it quickly. The lady needs rest more than speeches. Alaric looked at Rowena, voice gentle. Do you want time? Rowena's throat tightened. She had expected fear to answer. She heard something else instead, a quiet certainty that did not come from blood or seal or protection, but from the way Alaric had said, I love her, without asking the room's permission. No, she said, not time, only honesty. Alaric nodded. You have it. They married on a morning when the rain finally paused, as if England itself had grown tired of weeping for her. There was no grand procession, no crowded church to feed gossip. Only a small chapel on Montrose land, a handful of witnesses, and the sense of a door opening that could not be slammed shut again. Rowena stood at the front with Mrs. Finch beside her, fussing with her sleeve as if marriage were simply another appointment that required proper hems. Stop that, Rowena murmured. Mrs. Finch whispered back, If I do not fuss, I will cry. If I cry, I will be angry. If I am angry, I will scold the vicar. Rowena's lips twitched. And will you scold him? Not today, Mrs. Finch said. Today I approve. Lady Winford stood behind Rowena, composed as ever, but her eyes did not look away from Rowena's face. When Rowena shifted nervously, Lady Winford leaned close. You are not being sold, she whispered. You are choosing. Rowena's throat tightened. I am afraid. Lady Winford's voice softened. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to be ruled by it. The chapel door opened. Alaric entered without haste, eyes fixed on Rowena as if the rest of the world had dimmed around her. He stopped before her, and for a moment neither spoke. Rowena felt her hands tremble. She held them together to stop the shaking. Alaric's voice came low. Are you well? Rowena forced herself to meet his gaze. If I say no, will you still stand here? Alaric's mouth softened. Yes. Rowena's breath caught. Then I am well enough. The vicar cleared his throat, solemn and kind, and began. The words were familiar, ancient, heavy with history. Rowena listened as if hearing them for the first time. Not because she did not know the vows, but because she had never truly believed they could belong to her. When the vicar asked if she took Alaric Montrose to be her husband, Rowena's voice faltered once. She swallowed. I do, she said, and the words landed like a promise she could feel in her bones. Alaric's reply came steady. I do, the vicar continued, and when Alaric took Rowena's hand, he did it carefully, respectfully, as if remembering every boundary she had built and honoring them while stepping inside. Rowena whispered so only he could hear, "Do not pity me." Alaric's gaze held hers. "I do not." Rowena's eyes stung. "Do not rescue me." Alaric's voice stayed calm. "I will not rescue you. I will stand with you." Rowena's throat tightened again. "Do not use me." Alaric's tone did not change. "I will not." She stared at him. "Do not leave." Alaric's breath hitched, the first crack in his composure. "Never." When the vicar pronounced them married, Mrs. Finch let out a sound that was half laughter and half relief. "Finally," she muttered. Lady Winford's hand came to Rowena's shoulder, brief and steady. "Walk forward." Rowena took a step. Alaric stepped with her. Outside the chapel the air was cool and clean, and the quiet felt different now, not like hiding, like peace. They did not kiss in public display. Alaric only lifted Rowena's hand and pressed his lips to her gloved knuckles, slow and reverent, a gesture that held more tenderness than any spectacle. Rowena whispered, "That is enough to make people talk." Alaric's eyes warmed. Let them talk about something gentle for once. They walked toward the carriage, and Rowena saw her suitcases waiting near the steps, cleaned now, the leather wiped down, the mud gone. She stopped short. Alaric followed her gaze. "I had them brought from the cottage. I thought you might want them with you." Rowena's throat tightened. They were in the mud. Alaric's voice was soft. "Not anymore." Rowena walked to them slowly, hand resting over her belly, as if the child inside her were also walking. Mrs. Finch hovered behind. "Are you going to stare at them all day?" Rowena let out a small breath. "No." She reached for the handle of the largest case, then stopped. Alaric moved closer. "May I?" Rowena hesitated, then nodded. Alaric lifted the suitcase himself, not leaving it to servants. No flourish, no speech. Just a man taking what had been used to humiliate her and treating it as a normal thing, worthy of ordinary care. Rowena's eyes stung, and she blinked quickly. Lady Winford watched, her expression unreadable, then said quietly, "He understands symbols." Rowena whispered back, "He understands me." Lady Winford's eyes softened, just a fraction. Good. The new house was not a palace. It was not a cage. It was simply a home where doors opened when she knocked, and where no one looked at her as if she were an inconvenience. In the afternoon, Halbrook arrived with a final note. He did not enter the sitting room until Rowena invited him. "Madam," he said, bowing. Then his gaze moved to Alaric. "My lord, congratulations." Alaric's voice was polite. "Thank you." Halbrook handed the letter to Lady Winford, who read quickly, then nodded. "It is done," Lady Winford said. Rowena's stomach tightened. "What is done?" Lady Winford looked at her. "Mr. Whitcomb has been instructed to keep distance, and he will. The settlement is secured. Your name will not be used in any public forum. Your child's provision has been recorded." Rowena's breath caught. "And my marriage?" Lady Winford's mouth tightened, not with disapproval, but with the weight of the world's complexity. "Your marriage is lawful, protected, and discreet. No one will challenge it," Rowena whispered. "Because of the crown," Halbrook answered calm. "Because it is in everyone's interest that you be treated with respect and left in peace." Rowena's lips pressed together. Interest. Alaric's voice came quiet beside her. "And because you deserve it." Rowena turned her head toward him, and for a moment she could not speak. Halbrook bowed again. "Madam, I will take my leave." Rowena held his gaze. Tell whoever sent you, that I will not cause scandal." Halbrook nodded. "I believe you." Rowena's voice tightened. "And tell them I will not be handled." Halbrook's mouth softened faintly. "I believe that as well." He left. Mrs. Finch arrived the following week and announced, without sitting down, "I dislike your kitchen." Rowena blinked. "You dislike my kitchen?" Mrs. Finch nodded. "Too quiet. Too tidy. It gives me the feeling no one here lives." Alaric's mouth twitched. "I assure you we live." Mrs. Finch sniffed. "Then make more noise. The child will not arrive into a museum." Rowena let out a surprised laugh, and the sound felt like sunlight. Alaric looked at her as if that laugh were a vow all on its own. That evening, as the fire settled into a low glow, Rowena stood alone for a moment with her suitcases. She opened the smallest one and removed the letters she had protected with her silence. She did not read them. She did not need to. They were proof of old fear. Alaric appeared at the doorway, not entering until she looked up. "Do you want me to leave you to it?" Rowena's throat tightened. "No. Stay." He stepped in quietly. "What are those?" Rowena held the bundle in both hands. "A past that kept me alive." Alaric's voice softened. "And does it still need to?" Rowena's fingers trembled. "I do not know." Alaric came closer, stopping within arm's reach, waiting. "If you wish to keep it, you may. If you wish to let it go, you may. Either choice is yours." Rowena stared at him. "You keep saying that." Alaric's eyes warmed. "Because it is true." Rowena's breath hitched. Edric used to say choice was chaos. Alaric replied, "Choice is dignity." Rowena's hands tightened around the papers. She walked to the hearth and held them above the embers. Alaric did not stop her. Rowena's voice shook once. "I will not be chased by ink." Alaric's reply was barely above a whisper. "No." Rowena released the letters. The paper curled, darkened, and disappeared into ash. She stood still, watching until nothing remained but a soft grey trace. Then she turned, and Alaric was there, steady as a wall. Rowena lifted her hand to her throat and drew out the locket. She opened it. Inside was the tiny mark that had followed her life like a shadow. She stared at it. Alaric spoke gently. "You do not have to show me." Rowena's voice was quiet. "I want to." She held it out, palm open. Alaric looked, then lifted his gaze back to her face. "It does not change what I feel." Rowena's eyes stung again. "People would kneel for this." Alaric's voice was calm. "I kneel for no crest. I would kneel only if you asked me to, and even then it would be for you, not for blood." Rowena swallowed, and her voice trembled. "No one has ever spoken to me like that." Alaric's expression softened. "Then let this be the first of many times." Rowena closed the locket, then tucked it back against her skin. "It will always be part of me." Alaric nodded. "And it will never be the whole of you." Rowena's hand went to her belly. The child moved, stronger now, as if reminding her that the future was not a concept, but a person. Alaric's gaze followed the gesture, tender and reverent. "When the child comes, what name will you choose?" Rowena took a slow breath. "Montrose." Alaric's throat worked. "And Ashford." Rowena blinked. "I would allow it," Alaric replied. "It is yours." Rowena's voice went soft. "And the king." Alaric's tone remained steady. "He may be part of your history, but your child will be part of your home." Rowena's eyes filled, and this time she did not stop the tears. They slid down her cheeks quietly, without shame. Alaric stepped closer, and with the gentlest touch, he brushed a tear away with his thumb, as if wiping away the last trace of mud the world had tried to leave on her. Rowena whispered, "I am afraid happiness will be taken." Alaric's voice was low. "Happiness is not a thing others grant. It is a thing we build." Rowena looked at him through tears. "Build it with me." Alaric's answer was immediate. "Always." He took her hands, and Rowena leaned forward, resting her forehead against his for one steady moment, feeling the warmth of him, the safety of him, and the strange, quiet miracle of being cherished without condition. Later, when the house had settled into silence, Rowena sat by the fire and spoke softly, as if to someone listening beyond the walls, beyond the years. "If you have ever been made to feel disposable," she said, voice calm and sure, "remember this. Mud is not a destiny. It is a moment, and a moment can pass." Alaric's hand rested over hers, firm and gentle. Rowena looked down at their joined hands, then at the suitcases near the door, clean and upright, no longer thrown, no longer abandoned. "And if the world ever tries to throw you out," she whispered, "walk forward anyway. There is a life ahead that might be waiting to meet you with respect." Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.